being able to take advantage of the services that we do have locally in other business industries other than the ones we already service, as well as in those disadvantaged or minority business local owners that we have here, because we have a wealth of expertise here in our city, and I think it would benefit us to sometimes use our local and our homegrown, and to give some of our other small businesses a chance, because if big businesses are getting the bids, but then they in turn reach back out to our small businesses to do the bid, to do the work, what's the point? Like, why did we give you the bid? We could have got 3, 4, 5, or 2 or 3 or 1 local company to do that. I mean, to me, that's just a pass-through. Sorry, that's just a pass-through that we could have alleviated. And so I would like for us to look at that to see what that looks like. I don't know who's going to be able policy coming up because Kathy's leaving us, but I would like for that to be something that we look into, because I think we're missing a whole market of entrepreneurs and business owners here by not doing that, especially when our state government does that and our city government does it, and even our county, our overhead government does it, and we just don't do it in our office.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So who can look into that? Mr. Goldberg or?
Yeah, we'll be happy to look at some other places to trace it over the policy around that and bring some things around to the style and some
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank y'all.
All right, anything else on that subject or something else? Mrs. Hill.
Well, to speak briefly to that subject, I think, Kritza, that's an excellent point. And to do more than just lip service, to create a policy, Dr. Johnson, but also to create a process that makes our purchasing department friendly to small business and to minority-owned businesses, I think would be especially useful. As a small business owner myself, I know that we get RFPs that feel utterly insurmountable because of all the different requirements from government agencies sometimes, and that may very well be potentially why we didn't have a local firm chosen. So it's looking at how we do what we do. And
I think we can create those supports, technical assistance, making sure they understand what that looks like, making sure our RFPs are not something that, like you said, are astronomical where they can't process it or even feel like it's within their means, and it truly is. I think that's something we can look into, policy and process.
And I think there's a cultural commitment within organizations that do that well. Perhaps that will be part of the conversation we have in September when we talk about racial equity, and how that fits into our overall strategic plan, and what as a board we want to commit to doing, where that falls within our value structure. Because if it falls high in our value structure, then we think very carefully about how we build relationships with vendors, and I think it could affect us in a lot of ways, and in very positive ways.
And those are just some of the, I believe, some of the systematic things, like when you spoke at the last board meeting, those are some things that we can change systematically within Hamilton County Schools.
Right. Anybody else there under bids and contracts?
I did have one other question about the Smart Music Educator. I wonder if somebody could tell me a little bit about that, because it was a 1-year tool, so I didn't know if it was because it was appropriate for remote or if it's a pilot. That is the one directly above. It's 1L.
So this was a request by Claire Stockman to support all of her arts instructors with remote learning.
Okay, so that's why it's only 1 year.
Yes.
Okay. That's all, Joe.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else there? All right. So we got a monthly financial report there, and then also some budget amendments. looks like grants and self-funded programs. Anything there that anybody has a question about? I'll go first here. The item, well, it's not identified by number there, but the Future Ready Institute for Tyner Academy. I took a look at that a few minutes ago, but so
Was that number
is that a position?
14?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm sorry, where are we?
Document 14.450, it's at the bottom.
Under attachments, under federal grant, state grant,
Okay,
6C3.
got it. Just as simple as that. Okay.
Yeah. Dr. Johnson, do you see that item?
Yes,
Okay.
There are a couple in there. One is expert, several of them are externships.
Okay.
It's primarily externships. And so, most of it is the flow through from, whether it be, ED, primarily for Tyner ED partnership. And then the other one is,
Okay, I see now. It doesn't look like it doesn't look like a salaried. I mean, there are some, looks like there's some small supplements there, but
I'm sorry, I'm speaking, it's not even, so it's for externships primarily, and it's primarily for summer training.
Okay.
Where we provide additional training, whether it be at Unum or whether it be training held on a site, but it's funded primarily through the funds that are allocated through the partnership. So whether it's Blue Cross, or Funder, or Erlanger, or Howard, etc.
okay.
And Chairman, the stipends would be small supplements for employees, the other other salaries is most likely part-time work.
Okay.
I don't have the detail of what that is. That's generally how it's covered.
Okay. All right, anybody got anything there under the budget amendments?
I do.
Ms. Robinson?
I'm just curious about the looks like Shillahan Husky Foundation. Just wanted a little bit more information on what that's for and what that's from. I guess it's on. File number 15.460. It should have been right after the Future Ready Institute, Tyner Academy Future Ready Institute document.
Yes. It's a donation of $1,000.
Is it, I mean, I was just curious, like, is it going toward something specific? Looks like supplies and materials, but that's all it really says.
Yeah, I'll check Blake Freeman.
Okay.
Specifically on how that's been allocated to in certain areas.
And have we received funds from this foundation before? I've actually never heard of it.
I
don't think I
I've
have.
seen them before.
Okay.
It's
So it's just a
foundation, so
kinda
I don't
random.
know, I didn't check Richmond on top of it, but it may be that, a particular school has developed an individual relationship
Okay.
with the foundation that.
So it might be routed to that school.
We'll dig into that and check.
Okay. I did have one other question about another document. It's just the cell tower.
Yeah, I was asking about one.
It looks like there's a revenue increase of $200,000 from cell tower funds. Is that right?
So this is actually, it's more of a technical move of
Okay.
funds. So these are funds that are in the cell tower fund balance. So another item on the agenda is to, excuse me, appropriate $200,000 for the
Technology.
HCS Ed Connect.
Okay.
So this is the budget amendment that goes with it to move it out of fund balance into the budget line item.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anything else? All right, so that brings us to the principal incentive there. Anybody got a question? The priority school incentive, comment about that one? All right, then also, I think what Mr. Goldberg just spoke to, the appropriation there. Oh, go ahead.
Joe, on that one. And like here again, I'm asking a question that I know the answer to, but maybe the public doesn't understand what exactly that is. And these are for our hard to staff schools. Is that correct? I think people need to understand that's what this is for. And a lot of people may just think it's for any school, but it's for the hard to staff schools. And is there a list of those, or just a list of all of them right there together, I guess?
Yeah, that's correct. So
Yeah.
Brainerd, Tower, Delaware,
Yeah.
Orchard, Middle, Clifton Hills, Calvin Dawson, are
So it's about a $10,000 bonus. I guess it's considered a bonus, yes.
essentially, yeah.
Essentially a bonus.
Total funding, grant funding specifically.
Okay.
And is that bonus solely for the head principal of the school, or does it also trickle down to the assistant principals?
Yeah, so I think the focus of this, when it's been a couple of, you all remember when we started the partnership work, one of the areas of focus was around retention of principals, because there's a lot of turnover in the principal seat, the complexity of the job. So the focus was to retain principals.
Okay.
With the thought that, if you retain the principal, you establish a culture of people staying. And so we're seeing positive trends with retention of teachers and even support, but again, it's a federal funding.
Is there a length of time they have to stay in order to get that? Do they have to sign on for so many years, or?
Each year, and Keith can speak to it probably more.
Yeah, it's a year-to-year agreement.
Year, okay.
Keith, is it also based on school size? I noticed that the amounts are different, and I'm just trying to decipher in my head like what makes the difference in the amount per school. Is it student population size, or is it something different?
Experience.
Is it years of experience?
No. I'd have to go look at it to give you a firm answer on that. But it's not based on school size. There's a retention as well as a recruitment bonus.
Okay.
So we could, so there are some recruitment bonuses as well as retention bonuses paid out.
Based on them doing a great job of recruiting teachers?
No, based on us recruiting them into the position.
Okay.
But I think I'll have to look at it, but I think what you're seeing there is retention bonuses.
Okay. And there's a couple of recruitments of that position. So when we recruit a new principal,
Okay.
that recruitment bonus is a little higher than the retention bonus. So you should see the line items correspond with what's recruitment versus what's
Oh,
retention.
yeah. I do see it. Thank you. Okay. That makes sense.
Oh, gotcha.
All right. We good on that one?
Yeah.
All right, so then the next item there again, I think is what Mr. Goldberg was speaking to a minute ago. Appropriation of funds there for the Ed Connect. Any other further comment on that?
I'd like to thank Dr. Johnson for his work on that and his vision. This is something that I truly believe that communities potentially all over the world will be studying for years to come. The way that this partnership works and the way that it brings such a high quality service to our students, it's unlike anything anywhere as far as I know, and I've done a good deal of research on it. So we have a lot to be proud of with this. So thank you, Dr. Johnson, for your leadership on that.
Well, I want to give a push back to you all, because I think about 2 years ago, we started talking about being in a position to, and it's been years and years and years of being fiscally responsible. And a couple years ago, you remember we were positioned to be able to purchase devices for 6 to 12. And then also we did some infrastructure things like Canvas, and let me give a full disclaimer that we've got Canvas work still to do with training. And
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. And what's happened as well is, so there's a lot of things coming in, and I'm telling you, like our teachers, there's a lot of things coming in our teachers right now. Not in addition to managing COVID, also ClassLink is another one. So ClassLink, once it's all, it's integrated right now, when everybody gets really comfortable with it, it's going to be like nobody ever wants to go back. But really the service was to make sure we have a single sign-on, and so we've got some training support we continue to provide. But the foresight to purchase enough devices so that 6 to 12 were there, and then also the foresight to put funds away so that we get to this moment, we're able to pivot without trying to figure out how to scramble. And then also we'll say EPB, Blue Cross, our foundation, Smart City Venture Fund, city government, county government. There was a lot of folks that came together in really a short amount of time to pull this off for households across our district, and then to add to the fact that, you know, in the northern part of our county, we know we've got some areas that don't get serviced by EPB. So when we're able about hotspots, and I hate to say this, but hotspots will actually happen quicker than some of the EPB work. They've got to go in and put hands on and set some of that up. But it's monumental, and I do want to say this. It has been said, but there are very few, if any, communities in the country that have accomplished this, and it would have been a testament to just the collaborative work of our board and our community to work with. So happy that, you know, it's not just a stopgap type of approach. You're talking, you know, a decade of continuous support services here.
Well, and to your point, I mean, it's a 10-year commitment from EPB, which is huge, tremendous, at a very low cost to the school system. And also, like, as we think about how we're constantly committed to improvement, you know, you listed, Brian, some things with regard to software systems that need their rough edges brushed off. This is likely going to have some rough edges too. And one of them that I see that is the reality of the northern end of the county, in particular in Steve's district, not being able to be served because of the legal realities that EPB faces. And so I think next year our legislative rep might have some good talking points with our delegation to say, hey guys, we need you to go to bat for us. EPB's been asking to be able to service this territory for a long time, but they haven't been allowed to. So how do we work together to serve the students of Hamilton County more fully with this program? Because hotspots will bridge a gap, but long-term they're not the best solution. So more work to be done there. It's exciting work.
Mrs. Jones.
I was going to ask about the hotspots. So the 450, that includes our rural areas and then our housing developments that don't have the access as well?
Yeah, so a couple things are going on there. Primarily, the northern part of the county is where we think we know it's about 450 households.
Right.
Where their economic substantially no hotspots. EPB has been working on addressing housing development areas where there are some gaps, and that's something we're actively conversing about, and they feel strongly they're going to have a solution to address our housing development. So that's top of mind, and we know we've got enough room in there to be able to figure it out. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Thurman.
Yeah, the hotspots. I know some churches have been designated as hotspots. Am I correct? I know up in the north end of the county on my side.
Yeah.
Do we have an agreement with them, or are they just there? Do we have to go to their parking lot? One time that's what they were having to do. Do we have any kind of agreement with them to go in and use?
So a couple of things, and I'll let Nakia speak to a specific area because she's leading the body of work around faith-based. But in regards to hotspots in the spring, EPB was able to partner with some areas to put some hotspots in several locations across the county. And so some of those areas are still quick connect areas that are supported. This is more about bringing it to the
Yes, an actual
houses, okay.
Where you don't have to get your car and go to church with
I started to say that some people are still having to do that. So.
That's correct. Okay. And they will for a while. So in full disclosure, it's going to take EPB a little bit to get everybody stood up and running. And to the hotspot statement, the hotspot is easier. It's much less sustainable because you can't afford to sustain it for a long period of time. Mm-hmm. But with hotspot, the board approves this on Thursday, where you place the order and turn it around very quickly if the students. Keep me going to speak just a little bit to that faith-based piece.
Yeah, so we do have some churches who are been exploring with us the opportunity to set up virtual learning centers. So we got families who have said that they're wanting to do HCS at home, but they might not have the at-home infrastructure, to your point, the Wi-Fi, or even the adult who can be there to make sure the kiddo is like engaged and looking at the work. So we've been meeting over the past couple of weeks with about 40 to 50 churches now to see if they can make commitments by the end of the month to have virtual learning centers available either 5 days a week for those who are doing HCS at home, or to work with us when we're in hybrid learning, that they provide space on the off days, right? We have a remote learning day. So in fact, Vice Chair Joe Smith was on the call with us on Thursday. His church has committed. And so what we believe is that we can create all these learning pods, and the kids can come, have Wi-Fi access, have adult supervision oversight, have the ability to have a little bit of tech support, because of course our teachers are providing the curriculum and the instruction, but it also gives families stability in terms of where their children can go if they're not in person learning with us. So we're really excited about it, but as we said, we're having interest meetings in churches and other nonprofits. So we've got folks in the Saudi and Phil Creek and North Hamilton area, but all over the county really, who are wanting to step up. So we'll know for sure who's going to commit by August the 28th, and we'll start promoting that with our families so that they have options to support them regardless of the phase that we're in.
Okay, thank you.
Nikki, are you trying to get teachers at these places to help the students, or are they going to be volunteers?
So, so when we're in phase 2, remember our teachers are going to be working with us, so they're working with right. So what we're doing is a few things. Churches, some are recruiting volunteers, so people who just decide to live so their heart. Some of our churches have staff, and then what we found is that there are nonprofits who have staff, but they don't have space. Right, and so it's the Girl Inc. of the world, the Encompass of the world. They have people that they're paying, but they don't actually have a location for children during the day. So we're matchmaking that if a church has space and there is another nonprofit who has staff, that they might be able to work together. And of course, all of this is still under the social distancing cohorting provision. So we know that we're looking for churches that may, even if they can only support 20, 30 kids at their site, appropriately social distance, that still helps us.
Exactly.
Think about all the family needs that there is, and then all the churches that are located throughout the community. So we're looking at all of those. We're also looking at Chattanooga 2.0 supporting this work. And so we're also looking at seeing if we can fundraise. There's philanthropic partners. McClellan is involved. McClellan Foundation has been involved. That if churches need some dollars to help pay staff, that there's some dollars that are coming that way. The challenge that we have is that faith-based organizations aren't eligible for Tennessee CARES Act dollars. So this is giving us a way to engage those folks and figure out if there are alternative funding sources. One of the things that Chattanooga 2.0 has said is that they're getting lots of calls from businesses. Like, what are you going to do? We have people that work with us that when schools are going 3 days, and 2 days in person, 3 days remote. So there's a lot of people who are interested in creating these supports for families because it stabilizes their workforce as well. So we have a lot of hopes for the energy. We just actually looking at, about the toolkit that we're putting together, because what the faith-based organizations want to know is like, what am I committing to? Exactly what this looks like. So we're putting together kind of an operating guide, if you will, to give them more insight on what this would look like so they can make those decisions around whether, what kind of model they can commit to by August 28th.
That sounds great.
Dr. Highlander.
Thank you. Dr. Towns, thank you for taking leadership on that. My daughter is a church administrator. The church is planning on doing that. One thing that she said they looked into is they do need to increase their liability insurance. And so they have had a rider onto there. So you might want to mention that they might want to look into a rider.
Yeah, we had, and so I was actually talking to Vice Chair Smith about this, and some churches have umbrella policies already that cover what they need. We also know that the legislature passed the liability of coverage, if you will, around COVID-19, so that's helped a lot of churches get more comfortable that that the legislation is saying that so long as you're taking appropriate health and safety precautions, that you're shielded in statute from additional lawsuits. So yes, we have flagged for churches to check the liability coverage, but I think a lot of them may have what they need in their current.
And I hope they do. I talked to the largest church insurance carrier in the Southeast, and he said that a lot of it's based on numbers. When they're bringing numbers in, they have to increase their coverage. And so they had, and this church, my daughter's church, did decide to spend the church funds to do that. But most churches, and I'm thankful if there's some that do have that umbrella coverage. One thing that in dealing with this, I know a lot of our teachers have to be at work 5 days a week, and yet if they have children, they're going to have, say, and this, it's not really an AB schedule. Well, it is a temporary AB schedule right now. We're not level 2, but temporarily. And they have school-age children, and yet both parents are teachers. They have to teach 3 days a week. If there's not a grandparent or family member available, it's, I saw in Jenny's district where a family's 2 third grade boys, and I think that's great. That's wonderful. But we can't always do that. With my hearing, I'm trying to speak into the mic. Other people may have trouble. I have trouble hearing some. One thing that I've been concerned about in this is that teachers are getting very frustrated that they're trying, in some schools, not all schools, but in some schools, they're being asked to do a Zoom class while they're maintaining order and teaching. They're in class, and that may be okay with secondary, but when you're looking at young children, and those of us who dealt with young children know that is very, very difficult to keep things in task, and there's no continuity. I believe Dr. Johnson said we're allowing principals discretion. Is that correct? In that?
Absolutely. We're more happy to talk about that going forward. It's a grace period. We just had this conversation here right before coming into this meeting. We've been to school 3 instructional days on campus, and we've kind of set the bar high for ourselves, and I'm excited about the fact that our parents and the community have high expectations of us. That's a really good thing. I will tell you the efforts of our teachers are heroic. Having been in school buildings across our district, really all of our team, on multiple occasions. What we see teachers trying to work to juggle is it's really challenging. We absolutely acknowledge that. I'll say on the other side of it, I think that regardless of how COVID-19 plays out, the reality is we want to move really, really far ahead in regard to tech integration in our district. Growth that will innately happen just because of some of what we all are being asked to do. I mean, I think about us, everybody sitting in this room. Zoom was kind of an afterthought for me prior to. I may have done a handful of Zoom meetings before we start meeting for COVID-19. So I think it is a challenging moment for our teachers, to say the least, and they're responding. Well, our principals are responding. Our staff members are just doing an amazing job. Text messages are going on from the standpoint of contact tracing and trying to figure it out. Jen Bronson, Penny Murray, and Keith, and so many of the folks that put hours and hours and hours into it. And so we absolutely know that the ask is significant, and very proud of the work that's stepped up.
I'm just concerned, a lot of them are really at frustration level. They're really trying, I agree with you, Dr. Johnson, they're really trying to do the level they can. Some of them just don't see how they can do it, and they feel like they need training. If you get new programs and you say there's going to be great programs, I feel sure they are, but without having in-service, it's really hitting them pretty hard right now. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on that. I'm sure we're all getting the same emails from teachers and staff within our school system. I'm a parent, just like several of you are, and have kids in our school, and parents are frustrated too. But I think that we have to remember that if we want to accomplish innovation, we have to give ourselves time and patience and grace. Great things don't happen overnight. It takes time to build a rocket ship. And I look at this as we're building a rocket ship in the middle of a crisis. We literally have to get to the moon. There's no way around it. And so, just whenever teachers have reached out to me, I've tried really hard just to talk through the fact that we are all struggling right now, and we're trying to do something that no one's ever attempted to do. And I think that the more that we can remind the public of that, we can remind teachers of that, and we can remind parents of that, I think the better off we are. And I think to, Dr. Johnson's point, we're in a grace period. Like, we're in a period of, we decided to go ahead and basically like push back we decided to push back the plans of what we would be doing right now so that we could actually figure out these kinks. And so, I don't know, I just think that it's really important that we just remember that if we want to accomplish the innovation that we've put in front of ourselves, I mean, we've all got to just remember that and just roll up our sleeves and basically do the extra work. And I know that nobody wants to hear that, but every single industry is doing that right now. Every single parent is doing that right now. Every single student is doing that right now. Every single teacher, every single administrator is doing that right now. I mean, every industry is doing that. Even like Rhonda's industry is doing innovative things like that. I mean, they literally started teaching people how to color their hair online whenever they couldn't cut their hair or color their hair, in person. And, now, hair salons are innovating with that, and education's doing the same thing. And so, I don't know, as a parent, I was super frustrated last week, like very candidly, but then I had to like really reset myself and remember that we are trying to accomplish like something that no one's accomplished before, but also that no one's really been stepping out to try to accomplish. Like, we have one of the best and most innovative plans in the country. So I'm just going to keep singing that song, which is that we've got to be patient. We've got to have grace. We've got to also remember that we are building a rocket ship that we have to get to the moon with. And, I just think that if we can't all say that, then it's going to be really hard for people to believe that. And if people can't believe the vision that we are working toward, then it will be really hard and really painful to get there.
A principal in my district has a policy that, the silver lining policy, she says anytime somebody brings a true complaint, that she also challenges them to find the silver lining in the struggle. And that within their building has really helped people frame things in a different way.
Ms. Jones.
So I agree with everything that was said. I just want to make sure, because as of last, whatever day they started school, the 12th, everything that I thought was supposed to be happening on the 12th, I felt like I went into the Twilight Zone on the 12th. Because I know that there were directives given from Hamilton County Schools. And I know you all gave out directives. And then I know I'm just going to be very, Dr. Johnson, in my Dr. Johnson voice, I'm going to be very candid. Some people decided to ask forgiveness rather than permission. And it caused my phones to start ringing at 7:30 on August the 12th. Matter of fact, I got some calls at 10:30 and 11 o'clock on August the 11th at night. I do not like that. I've already expressed this to the executive cabinet, so they already know. I don't like that. If we have a rule out, not a rule, we have a process out, and we've shared that process across social media waves, we have told parents and teachers and principals, I'm using an analogy, we have 50 schools. If 40 principals have gotten on a Zoom with their parents and said, this is what Hamilton County Schools is doing, I don't need 10 to go renegade. I don't. We don't. We can't afford it. Everything we have worked so hard for to change the perception of Hamilton County Schools almost went down the drain last week because somebody wants to do what they want to do. And I didn't like that. Not when you have a parent with a kid in two different schools and one principal telling her to do what Hamilton County Schools said to do and the other principal telling her to show up on Friday. That ain't what we said. That is not what we said. It's not. And it's not okay. And if something is going on, then it needs to be articulated that this is what ABC Elementary is doing, but all the other schools in Hamilton County are doing this. But for whatever circumstances, Sesame Street Elementary has to do this for this amount of time. And then they need to get back on the train with everybody else. Because it's confusing to parents. Parents and grandparents and guardians and foster parents are setting schedules. Everybody juggling, like Tiffany said, every industry is juggling. That is not fair. That is not fair. That's not fair to the kids. They confused. And I just had to say that, like, I know this is all new. This is all new. This year I've learned how to get on Power School. I've registered kids on Power School. I've done everything. And my poor baby ain't made it yet, but we getting there. But I'm just saying, I've learned how to do a lot of things because we all, I'm sure, have walked people through the process. But I don't like feeling comfortable in knowing what I'm telling a parent, and then that's not okay.
So what's happening?
Well, I think it's on the right train this week.
Okay.
But like last week I got a call, there was a kid going to one school and they were starting on the AB schedule, the timeline we got. But then he had an older sibling who went to another school and they was all doing this, but don't show up to Friday. Well, that's not what the little chart I got in my phone and my iPad. I have it everywhere. I have it posted in my office at home.
I'm with you. Yeah.
So that's not okay, because then a parent has to figure out, what am I gonna do with this kid? Or why is this happening here and not here? And then we looking like some fools, I'm sorry. Well, we're looking unstable. And I don't think it's fair to us. I don't think it's fair to our executive cabinet who's given a directive. And I'm about to get off my soapbox, but I don't think that's fair because everybody has worked really hard to try to get us here. And I just didn't think that was fair. I didn't.
It's got to be consistent.
It has to be consistent. And if it's not, we know circumstantially things happen. I think they need to explain it that way, but you just can't go willy-nilly. You just can't.
Well,
Ms. Thurman.
I agree with you. But the problem started a couple of weeks before when he changed it and then turned around and changed it.
Yeah.
And I think we should have gone with our original plan. That's all. And I've told Dr. Johnson that more than once. But I think I'm with Chris. Parents have to make plans. They have to make plans. They have to know what's going on. We just can't be jerking them around and saying, hey, we decided it would be best for us to do it this way. Well, the school system is about the students and the parents too. So we have to do what's best for everyone. And I think we should have done what we said we were going to do to begin with. I got a call last night at 10 o'clock. Ms. Thurman, is my child supposed to go to school tomorrow? Where does your child go and what is their last name? And then I found out at another school that some people were dropped off at school Friday that weren't supposed to be there. Well, parents were confused about what they were supposed to do. And I bet you there were some kids left this morning that were not supposed to be there because they were told they were going to go to school on the 17th. So I'm Caritza. It was just very confusing. And if we're in the middle of it and we're confused, I can't imagine how some other parents are. Some parents are not as engaged as others. We have your parents who are drug addicts and alcoholics and stuff like that just don't pay up on keep up with this kind of thing. And then there's some that are just too busy, maybe that work 2 jobs that are just not as connected and don't keep their nose in the HCDE web page and Facebook page. But I just think we just need to be consistent and be ever mindful that there are other people besides us that are having to change plans. There's 40,000 of them, and there's not that many of us, and we need to keep them in mind when we change plans. It's just really hard on a lot of families.
And there's a level of accountability for everyone. I agree with Rhonda said and I believe that I feel like we own ours. I think sometimes, I got calls about parents who didn't have Power School sign-ins, and I'm like, well, how old's your kid? Well, he's in 10th grade. Well, he been in Hampton County School the whole time? Yeah. Well, huh? That was me on the other end, like, wait, what? Like, I'm confused. Like, to me, and you're right. So there's a level of accountability because to me as a parent, once my child gets once I get that parent Power School login, I'm probably going to put it in my phone or write it in the back of my planner or stick it on the refrigerator. I shouldn't have to ask that every year. Right. As a parent, there's a level of accountability for me because in this new stage, principals and teachers don't have time to reissue that every other day because you didn't write it down. And it's same with our older children. There's just some things we have to teach. There's a lot of accountability, and I think we have provided a lot of resources. And I say that just once again being very candid because my anxiety level is so high. I don't go on Facebook anymore because I just get sick and tired of getting rocks thrown at us. And I'm like, you get on here and you have the court of Facebook, but if you just like a page, everything you needed was just a page over. Everything you needed was just a page over. And if you can tag us and post, and I feel comfortable in saying this, everybody that I know that's on social media, we share everything that Hamilton County Schools post. And even Rhonda might not share the extra page, but Rhonda put stuff on. I mean, everybody is telling this information. So instead of tagging us, just come on over. I invite you over to read. And I know I'm not fussing, but y'all, to the public, everybody. But it's just, there's a level of accountability for everybody. So if we're all taking the time with our various occupations to be your school board member to learn the process, you should learn the process, because people have worked very hard to create a process, and it's not, we are building a rocket ship, but it ain't rocket science to read.
Well, and can we put a finer point on the fact that if your child or you have had a COVID test, wait until you get the results before you send your child to school or you walk into a school building. Because I would actually be pretty interested to see a graphic from you guys of this choice that this person made and how many people it affects, because it's exponential. And you know, my children went to school on I guess Wednesday, and they will not be back in a building again until next Monday, just because of the reality of contact tracing. And they're doing okay, but it was a big choice that somebody made that they didn't probably think was a very big choice. And my hope would be that there will be enough positive peer pressure from other parents over time to cut that off. This is not strep throat. You can't fake it. You can't fake it and
This
send
is
them.
more on an STD level. Sorry.
Yeah.
But I
Go
mean,
ahead.
it is.
I think one thing we started with
It's on the
was,
HIV level.
that Colin mentioned the work that teachers are doing, and you know, go back to that, to reecho, like, these are uncharted waters. And I told my team this morning, we talked this afternoon as well. Like, everybody has to take a deep breath in this moment. Everybody has to show grace in this moment. Let me be very candid with each of you. If we had not started on an AB, as we did, we would have multiple schools in 14-day quarantines right now. The fact that we did kept us from being there. There are teachers that needed an opportunity to get really comfortable with the fact that students were coming in. What do I do procedurally? There are teachers that are being asked to, you know, to the point, look on Zoom and look at students. There are leaders that are having to figure out, tracking down, literally, you know, right now as I speak, you know, communicating about contact tracing and who was a close contact and who was not. This is a whole different set of expectations on schools. Metro Nashville isn't open. Shelby County's not open. Knoxville's pushed their date back. Rutherford's pushed their time back.
County's closed.
Everybody, smaller, larger, you name it. The eyes of the state are on Hamilton County schools in large part because of the size and the complexity of the challenge in which we're trying to undertake. And so it is a moment and opportunity for grace. It is a moment and opportunity in which, frankly, there is no playbook for this. I'm immensely proud of the work that our reopening team has done. Your vision as a board around it in trying to get open. We are, you know, again, in an area that I've never seen before. And I know I'm not as seasoned maybe as some in the room, but I've never seen this before. And I don't know that we'll ever see it at this scale again. And what we're trying to do, and I mean this, what we're trying to do is to learn how to exist and continue teaching and learning safely in the midst of a pandemic. And that's tough. And so I can't accentuate that enough. The last thing I'll say, we've been in on-campus learning 3 days. 3 days, y'all. You know, and I keep telling our team this, I tell our system this. We've been on campus learning 3 days. Let me say this, I've played and coached a lot of football, even at the collegiate level. And when I played sports, on our third day, we weren't ready to go play on Friday night, on Saturday afternoon in college. We just weren't ready. I can't say enough, even as I think about what our team has really tried to take on. And I'm gonna tell you, there are some systems that won't be ready for this. When you to do it the right way, the hours with the health department, to contact trace, to make sure out of an abundance of caution you do things the right way, they will not be able to withstand some of the challenge of this. If I can end with anything else, and I know the media's going to catch a whole lot of things about this last conversation that went on, and a lot of times we catch microcosms. I want Nakia to, when I finish, to share just a little bit of data about what has happened as a result of us being in a COVID-19 moment. But the last thing I do want to say is this, and I want to go back to something I think Jenny was saying, that SN Safe says stay at home if you're sick.
Right.
And the most important thing that we can do as a community right now, outside of wearing masks and washing hands, and we ask our parents, obviously our teachers and leaders, if you are symptomatic, if you are sick, if you're waiting on a test and you do not have the results, please, 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 out of an abundance of caution, help us by staying at home, because that day or two that we may be inconvenienced, I'm a parent too, that day or two that you may be inconvenienced trying to figure out care for your child could ultimately save an entire school building. Because if a student comes in contact, in particular when you get to the secondary level, if a student comes in contact with, with another positive student, and then they take that to 6 or 7 teachers, and those 6 or 7 teachers get together and they take it to 6 or 7 more teachers, before you know it, you've got to quarantine an entire school building, and you've got something that's really spread out of control. So we just got to all be great citizens in this moment. This is a moment in time for us to really navigate thoughtfully, to keep safety at the forefront. But I'm going to tell you, we're doing this for student learning as well. Our commitment, I know we talk about COVID-19 so much, and as rightfully we should, but so much of our commitment to trying to make this happen is because we firmly believe that for so many of our students, this is a difference maker. Trying to be on campus is a difference maker in their education and academic careers. And it is critical. So Nikki, if you would just share a little bit about the data from logins.
Yeah, I think that to Dr. Johnson's point, our senior leadership team, we had a lot of conversations about what folks are experiencing in these first 30 days, and we are rapidly, continuously improving. We're continuously improving our processes around COVID-19. We're continuously improving what's happening in terms of our instructional technology platforms. I spend too much time on social media. So I know that's exactly what you see. And so I think we have to ground what we see on social media that's anecdotal with what we can, go kick the tires and see for ourselves. I've been in a dozen schools over these past 30 in-person days, and I'm seeing a lot of great work that's happening. And so for every anecdotal, story I think that we have with a teacher that's struggling, I've seen genius already. In classrooms when I walk in terms of people doing an amazing job with a smart board that's up, engaging with their children that are in front of them, and the children who are on Zoom are on the smart board screen. And because the smart board has a speaker, they're literally just engaging with that child that's on the screen as if they were there. And the children who are in person can see the child that's on the screen, the at-home kids. So there are some teachers who have made just tremendous strides, even in day 3. And we were talking just with HCA today about how can we get teachers connected to one another to get those models. Because it's not so much, and it won't be one size fits all, but I think teachers talking to other teachers about practically how they're implementing this and what tools they're using specifically in their classrooms is going to make all the difference. So we're trying to figure out how to accelerate that. Even as we talk about classrooms, we wanted to pull Shannon leading her team. One of the wonderful things about classrooms is we have so much analytical data around what's happening with logins. And so far, today, we had 17,000 students log in to our platforms. We had 1,649 staff log in. So far in August, we've had 26,296 students log in to ClassLinks or another platform. We've had 3,570 staff log in. That's basically every teacher. This is working, right? There are pockets of people who are having challenges, and we get that people have to get up to speed, some folks, but it is working. Today, I'll give you the example like that. The #1 app is Canvas so far this year. We had 42,000, almost 42,000 launches of Canvas today alone. So children and teachers are logging in. Our second most used app is Zoom. We had 12,693 launches of Zoom today. And then third was iReady. We had 11,436 launches of iReady. So we give those numbers so that people know that we have no doubt that there are individuals who are facing challenges. But the systems themselves are working, and what we're trying to figure out is that how do we get the families and the teachers who are struggling with some of the applications, how do we rapidly get them stood up with just-in-time training? We just had a conversation about this with Wednesday. We're going to stand up a lot of just-in-time training opportunities because we get it. For those who are frustrated and it's a struggle, we need to very quickly help them get kind of over some of the learning curves and get more comfortable. But I'll just repeat that today we had almost 42,000 students get onto campus today. And that's on the third day of in-person learning.
Wow.
Awesome.
Nakia, I'm sure that you guys are also thinking about this since you're talking about utilizing just-in-time, but what I've noticed from my own experience is that if we could also put together a parent toolkit to really even hit on some things that like I'd never even thought of before as a parent. Like number one, like my third grader can't type, so I had to go figure out how to put like the talk to text feature on his Chromebook, and then I also had to go find typing websites that I'll spend the next 6 months probably having him get on each day so he can learn to type. There are just like these small barriers that parents are seeing for the first time that, in the spring, yes, we may have seen it, but we didn't realize that maybe was the hurdle because we were just all spiraling, trying to understand what was happening in our lives at the moment. And so I think there are little things like that parents, if they had a toolkit to reference, would just be really helpful. And, I think asking parents to put together that toolkit to give a lot of input would probably help. I know that as a parent, I'd be happy to help with that too. So just little things like that. So, just as you're thinking about what can go into the teacher toolkit, maybe thinking about creating a parent toolkit would be helpful too.
That's a good idea.
And so I think to your point, we absolutely can take some feedback. I know we put out, it should go out today or has gone out maybe already in the Monday communication, ClassLink resources, Canvas resources, Class Dojo resources, Nearpod, Google, Zoom, and Kiddom, which are the primary. Which one did you say?
Launch.
There's a Flipgrid. There may be a one-off. Yeah, there may be a other one-off kind of resource, but they all have. If you click on that, they all have resources and trainings around. But I think what you mentioned about like keyboarding and such, that's a small thing, but that is something that's a big thing because we all are so thumb-driven now.
I mean, there's, if you sit in front of a computer all day, there's certain little, tricks that you've learned to like go clear your eyes, like taking a break from the computer screen every 20 minutes and looking at something else for 60 seconds. Like, it's just little stuff that really our kids are just not exposed to. I mean, at one point, my son was underneath the table crying because, he's just so intimidated by typing, and it's like, okay, well, I can't, like, and then as a parent, I'm like, I can't do this, so I've just kind of noticed over the last few days, especially talking to parents in my district and then friends back and forth now, like over Facebook, everybody's putting their like trials and tribulations on Facebook about remote learning, but really we start to all like talk back and forth and figure out how to help each other solve each other's problems. And I don't know, a toolkit or something to that degree could be very helpful of just things that we just wouldn't normally think of. So
I just echo, I'm a superintendent, but I'm a father. And so at 9 last night, as we're getting ready for bed, my wife said, "Did you do your homework?" to my son, and he was like, and I knew it didn't happen. And so we're sitting there struggling with it as well, right? And it's not struggling in a bad way. It's we got to figure out how to navigate this because. Right. But you can't be the guy going back without your work done. So
the superintendent's son and the school board member's son may be those guys.
Yeah. Oh, see, that's what I'm saying. I got to look at crazy.
Hey,
so we all get it.
I want to get back. I know Tucker had his hand up a minute ago. Tucker, go ahead.
Going back to the testing, one thing that was pointed out to me, and when I got tested, it made sense. So the health department, when you get tested through the health department, I guess now at the Alstom site, they give you handouts. And one of the handouts says, if you're asymptomatic, you do not have to quarantine. And so people were taking that literally, and they weren't doing it. So I wonder if we could work with them in some way in, they ask you a bunch of questions. Do you have internet access? Do you have this? Are you getting tested because of, through a school or something? Here's a handout on things not to do or something like that, just to kind of be proactive and hit it up front.
Yeah, so that was great feedback, and we take it to them. We met with Health Department Thursday, I
that's
think
a
it
good
was,
point.
Keith.
Yeah, I didn't know they were doing that.
Friday, so we'll absolutely, we have a weekly standing meeting with them.
Ms. Thurman, oh, sorry, go ahead, Mr. Fogle. Would you want to say something to that?
I was just going to say, we actually are meeting with them on a daily basis in the morning, so that we just a quick 15-minute touch base, make sure we're all on the same sheet of music.
Okay, Ms. Thurman.
Yes, Dr. Johnson, I did want to thank you for being bold enough to open the schools up and be the one that's forging ahead.
I couldn't agree more.
Bold or crazy, I'm not sure which, but whatever fits. Whatever you feel comfortable with.
I'm going to tell y'all my heart on this. And I'm just being honest. And somebody said it earlier. We have kids and families that do not have support. Like, I care about it for my kid. My son's so happy to go back to on-campus learning and know what to do. But we have kids, he thinks he is. He's in 3rd grade now, and it's going to be a different world when this work really hits him this year, because this is the year. But we have kids and families that do not have support systems and structures at home. And as great a job as our teachers do, and it is phenomenal, as great a job as they do, I know what's going to happen to a lot of those kids that have not been in school since March. Right. And our job is to move teaching and learning forward. And so, if we can safely do it, and know this, as we've had school closures and stuff, and it's out of an abundance of caution, and parents, you got to work with us, because if we're able to remain open, this will be our cadence. I mean, unfortunately, we cannot determine when there is a potential positive and how deep we're going to have to go with contact tracing. Y'all, contact tracing is a web. You know, it just splinters out to all different places, and sometimes you can narrow down the contact tracing in a couple hours. Sometimes it's a couple days, you know, and then by the time you get it done, you figure out this person was a close contact. Now you got to give them time to get tested, so it extends you a little bit even more. So it just all depends. But we just think it's the right thing to do, to try to do for our children. And again, the efforts of our teachers and leaders is it's absolutely heroic. And know this, that, and I want to be really clear on this as well as we have this conversation, that we don't take COVID-19 lightly. You know, like it is serious. And so we're dealing with it very seriously. When we say wear your mask, we mean wear your mask. You know, we're not going to have a conversation about wear your mask. When we say report, if you are sick, please report if you are sick. We got to do this thing the right way if we're going to stay open. I believe if we do what we're supposed to do, we wear masks, we distance, we do the proper things, we report if we're sick. There may be a moment in time where I'm sending you all a message saying, hey, I ain't feeling great today, you know what I mean? I don't think it's COVID-19, but guys, I'm gonna be sure, you know, and I hope that our teachers and leaders and students take that same, and families take that same tenor, because that's the only way we're gonna survive until there is a vaccine. And I'll be so grateful when there is a vaccine. It'll be like the weight of the world is lifted off all of our shoulders. But Rhonda, we just think it's the right thing to do, and boy, we just do. That's why we living where we're living.
Dr. Highlander.
I was just gonna say, can we get a real regular report? I know you've done some, like on a weekly basis, of maybe some of the successes and also some of the problems, and just let us be aware of it so we can get, we're hearing it from the community, but if we could hear from you guys and then what you're doing to overcome those things to help us give the community answers. You follow what I'm saying?
Absolutely. So a couple things that'll happen. I want to remind everybody we've been in school on campus 3 days. And so I think I probably have worn y'all's emails and messages out. Probably. I get a little concerned because you're about tired of me. But I will absolutely. And as Jim Bronson, Keith Fogelman's deciding to go to the beach here soon. And as Jim Bronson, we're going to put him off the beach. But as Jim Bronson settles in and works through, a couple of things are going to happen. One, we're going to offer anybody that wants to just to go through a 30 minutes. I was talking to Chairman Wingate about this today, just to take a moment to go through kind of what happens behind the scenes from the standpoint of contact tracing and how we communicate with principals. That's gotten tighter and tighter and tighter. But then secondly, you know, obviously sharing some of this data. Like some of the stuff you hear today is hot off the press. Like literally we talked about this at 4:45, you know, right before coming in here. And so, I mean, we've grown so much as a system, leaps and bounds, because of having to try to figure this thing out, that on the other side of this, I think it's going to be, it's going to pay huge dividends. So yes, absolutely, Dr. Highlander, we'll make it happen.
All right. So let's move down here then to, that brings us to our policies. We've got some second and final readings there. Any question about that? The Dr. Towns Edwards, I want to make sure I'm looking at this right. So the bereavement leave, the military leave, our second and final, and then the email, application, employment policy, and also staff rights and responsibilities. So all of those are second final. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
I didn't have a question about the actual policy language, but I was curious, when are we scheduled to review our maternity policy? Because this is military bereavement. Normally, I would think normally maternity goes with it.
So, I think it's under the family level.
It would be on a family medical leave, and I think we've,
I thought we already did that one.
those policies typically are reviewed late winter, early spring.
Okay, so we probably did in the winter. Okay, all right.
And we did, I think, last year, we did update the one, as I recall, that
I did too.
clarified that sick leave can be used first for maternity leave, and I think we had to clarify state law guidance that allowed spouses who are both employees to both be able to take the family medical leave or maternity and maternity leave as well. So we did do a pretty good rewrite of that to update, and we reviewed it last year.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on any of those that are on final read?
The electronic mail, that's not final read, that's first read, right? Was that the one that Scott was working on?
Final.
And we didn't read the last time because Scott said he was working on it. Is this considered first or second?
So I think we are asking for it to be second and final because we need to put it into effect, but I will double check and stuff that language wasn't finalized.
Well, I had my notes that Scott was going to.
Yeah.
Yes, I didn't know if this was going to be final read or first read.
So we can certainly, it's at you all's pleasure. I think what we were trying to do is get it into, as Mr. Bennett has said to us, that you all have the option to make something final on the first read. But I think we were just trying to get it in effect because it does impact a lot of what's happening right now.
Is he going to give us a report on that on Thursday?
We can ask him to. We can ask him to.
I definitely would want to do that without hearing what he had to say.
Absolutely.
Yeah, is this the same one that the teachers sign? I know they have to electronically sign an agreement at the first of the year. Is this what they have to sign, or is there a
Part of
separate
the handbook
agreement?
acknowledgement.
Yeah. Part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
And it's also part of the HR,
Yeah.
when you're newly hired, it's part of our package.
Coach, would you, I'm just asking, I mean, we can leave it here on the agenda as is and then pull it on Thursday night if you'd like to do that until we get better explanation from Mr. Bennett, and then if we choose to approve.
Yeah, if it's accepted, Mr. Bennett's, he was going to go over it and
Right.
revamp it for us.
Right.
And if he can get it to our satisfaction, that'd be fine.
Yeah. I mean, I'm open, if you all are okay with that, if you want to pull it Thursday night and then have him update us as to where he is on it, and then if we choose to approve it at that point, we can. You okay with that? Okay.
This may not be the best time. At the last meeting, I asked about what plans specific, I know you guys are working on it. Like the school nurse can't handle it. We have multiple sick kids at the same time. Do we ever come up with a person, or are you doing it on a school basis? Or what if multiple teachers get sick during the day? How do we cover the classes? And I mean, we talked about that last board meeting, and you rightfully said you're trying to work through that. If we come up with any answers yet, we still work the project.
Yeah, and Keith may want to chime in some on this, but our nurses have been trained and are, ready to navigate as much as humanly possible COVID-19 experience. I was actually at Central High School and was talking to the nurse there, and she's moved to a different space and location. We've got to do a little work on that room, but got them all in bigger spaces was the first step. And then also they've gone through additional training to support what's needed. So schools are working through, have worked through, obviously, if you've got a symptomatic student, kind of what you're doing with a potentially symptomatic student. I think one of the cases you mentioned about, or one of the situations you mentioned about multiple teachers, it just kind of depends on how many multiple. If you've got a couple 3 is in multiple, or 10 or 12 is in multiple, because that's going to dictate honestly whether or not you're moving forward with them being close contact and providing subs, or if you're having to close the individual school. The other thing that I would just flag, again, it's I think a point of really what we should be doing. Our employees we can track right now, as we have positive employee cases and tests. That's publicly reported on our district website. And Shannon Moody's been behind the scenes. She's just done yeoman's work with this, but she thinks tomorrow she's going to be able to hit the button on the student side, and so we'll be able to report complete cases on a daily basis, positive cases for COVID-19. And again, don't hold me till tomorrow, because she's working on it, but at some point this week, we'd anticipate both of those pieces of information being readily available to the public.
I guess possibly part of what I'm trying to think of too is pragmatically, when somebody's been in the classroom and had to cover half another class through the years, and if you were short on subs last year, and then they would say if it was a third grade class and there were 24 kids in there, 8 would be able to each of the other 3 third grade teachers. But now, with the distancing being essential, that they can't do that. We're going to work through that. What if we come up with a plan? If we don't have a substitute available, and the teacher, comes up with 102 temperatures at the last minute, we look at how we're going to divide the personnel up and get personnel to cover that.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, that's not a one size fits all, because y'all know this. Every hand is on deck as we try to navigate this, and so instructional coaches, like I think principals, are thinking through everybody on their team that they can use to kind of, to your point, to kind of help with navigation of it. And so that's kind of where schools are coming from as we try to figure out this season. And so it is going to be on I'd say a case by case, but it is going to be based on what's going on in that building, how widespread an issue is this an isolated, do I have a sub that we can access? Is it a situation where the contact tracing is going to take us out multiple days and we need to shut that building? It's ultimately not a one size fit all.
If I may make a slightly lighter statement, if I may, I think maybe Dr. Towns, Dr. Robertson, they'll take some kindergarten, first grade classes for us. Kindergarten. Forgive me. You would do well with that, Dr. Towns. I would love to. I will be your paraphrase.
I was going to say, and to Dr. Johnson's point, we have been actually Dr. Brown's background, who's in HR now, and Penny Murray, the chief talent officer. We were having a conversation today about sub-assignment and prioritizing subs, because we were having a conversation around subs for teachers who have 100% virtual assignment. So this is part of us making sure that we prioritize subs for folks who have in-person students. And then the second thing that we've been seeing in classrooms, because we have dedicated teachers for HCS at home, and then it creates space in the building. I was in, for example, East Lake Elementary, where pretty much every grade level, they created an empty classroom because they have set up their HCS at home teachers in a partition corner of the library. So what that does is give them what I call overflow space, right? And so they're making sure that in those now empty full-time classrooms, they can do pull out, of ESL, let's say, so that they keep the number of students who are together in a classroom full time in those small numbers that we need for social distancing. I would imagine similarly if they had teachers that were out, this is Dr. Johnson's point, everybody's all hands on deck. So we have the educational assistants, the ESL teachers, any instructional coaches, any additional administrative staff, they're all able to act as proctors. And they talked about even if you had that kind of situation, maybe you have a teacher, EA that's in one space that's acting as a proctor, and a teacher who's kind of coming back and forth between classes that are across the hall from each other, where we maintain social distancing, but as you said, we're able to cover an absence without crowd of students into one classroom. So
We can't afford a crowd.
no, absolutely. So we've got, the principals are working on lots of contingency plans, and I think that we will be working through the extra space. And I'll say this, I know different schools are in different situations, but on these A and B days, what my focus has been to make sure that we're looking at classrooms that by and large on these A and B days have less than 10 kids. And the majority of the schools that I've been in, these classes right now have less than 5 kids. I've seen 4 to 6 kids in the classroom. I think I've seen, like, on an exception basis, maybe 11 students in the class. And what that does is say to us, if we get to 5 days, will we be at less than 20, but in a lot of places, we're going to be at less than 15. I mean, we've got space in the room, so I think more and more principals are seeing that their plans, because we have students in HCS at home, because they've created these additional spaces, it's just some really phenomenal operational work that's been happening in buildings to make sure that we can keep our priority for health and safety with the community.
If I could ask one more question, Dr. Robertson may help me. How are we doing on bus drivers? I mean, I will tell you, I'm living in fear that some of our older bus drivers won't get sick. And then what are we gonna do if we don't have bus drivers?
Yeah, so
We need those people.
most of our buses, same time, are in similar situation, what Dr. Towns is talking about with the number of kids. Just a lot of parents have chosen to take their kids to school, pick them up, and with only half the kids in school, we've got really low numbers. We are, remember, taking precautions. Everybody, including driver assistants, every kid has to wear a mask the entire time they're on the bus. We're leaving empty the seats that are immediately behind the driver, so we've got built-in social distancing for those bus drivers. So we're taking precautions to support those drivers and think we're in good shape right now.
Well, this first few, I mean, how are their numbers?
In terms of their in terms of their recruiting, last I checked, I think they were about I think it was 7 or 8 short of where we expect them to be.
So contract drivers are covering those now?
No, they're covering their routes. First students covering the routes, but they should have a built-in bench, for sub drivers and all of that stuff. So
I'm glad the kids are getting to school. I'm just, if I could, maybe you could address the temperature check, Dr. Johnson. I know it's.
Hey, can we?
I know it's not a catch-all, but I mean, it's one way of I wonder, what, was it Dr. Adams that caused us that requested us to drop the temperature check?
Hey, Dr. Robertson, Dr. Hollander, if you don't mind, could we hold that question until we get to the end of the agenda here?
Okay.
And let's finish where we're at, and then, that's all right.
And Chairman, if I could really quick, I want to be clear. We're not, I know I'm out of order, I'm sorry, but I do want to address it because I don't want to leave that and then that'd be the last thing that's called. So we're not in phase 2. We are in, safe start, great start. In phase 3, which is where we hope to be, there's not a temperature check, and we, hope that we don't have to have a temperature check. The temperature check is good for a moment in time. And so, also what we've learned kind of going forward is that in addition to that, the temperature check is just one indicator that really from a symptom standpoint it's not even seen as as strong a symptom as it was initially thought to be. And so there are multiple things going on with that, but I just want to be clear that there's been no change to great start, safe start. There's been no change to phase 3, which is based on our numbers in August 31st where we be.
Excellent, thank you.
All right, so.
And one more thing, I'm sorry, I'll be quiet. But also, please note, on July 23rd, the CDC changed their guidance around mass temperature screening. So we're doing a lot of referring to CDC and experts. This is a moving target that we're after. And so when the CDC changes and pivots in the end of July, we have to be nimble as an organization and pivot as they deem appropriate. And so please understand that our pivots are many times we get blamed with the pivot, but our pivot is based on the pivot of the CDC.
You have well answered what a lot of people are asking me. Thank you.
All right, so any of the policies there, we said, so what we need to do there then on Thursday night, it doesn't matter obviously who does it, but we just need to ask to pull the use of email there so we can get clarification from Mr. Bennett. But any of those other policies there that we have question about before we move to board matters? All right, then last item there would be board matters, which brings us to the East Ridge Elementary sidewalk. Questions about that?
I'll speak
Mr.
to it.
McClennan, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll speak to it just for a second. I think, Justin, was it back in December? It was back sometime in the winter that East Ridge City came to the board wanting to purchase some right-of-way in front of East Ridge Elementary for about $41,000. They ended up getting a grant for doing all of this. And so this is helping them out and not having to purchase the right-of-way. I don't know, Ringo Road, right where Belvoir is, it's a super busy intersection. And this is going to kind of make it with 4 crosswalks. Students are having to walk across the street right now with no signaling, no crosswalk. So it's really going to benefit the students at East Ridge going across Ringgold Road that live right across there and then are right across the street from the school as well.
So do we need to put that in the form of a motion, Mr. Chairman?
What's that?
You did?
It's an agenda meeting
No.
Thursday.
Okay, that's what I'm saying, we will on Thursday.
Yes.
Hey, but Tucker,
It's
I'm curious, is the 41.5 and the work that you just talked about, is that apples to apples? Like, is it going to cost them $41,000 to do the work that you just mentioned?
Yeah, so it was basically what they're having to do is they were going to pay us $41,000 for it, plus use their money for the pay for the construction of it. So this allows them to not have to pay for it, use the grant and that kind of thing. So it's kind of
increase the scope of work.
yeah, it does increase.
That's what I was trying to understand, the scope of work.
You're gonna pick up some neighborhoods that are connected to the schools, so I think.
To increase the safety for our children.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think there's a great picture. I think it's the 4th attachment on there. It's kind of really enlarged on our, but you can zoom out on it and it kind of shows the scope of work, and it even goes up, I think the next thing, the 5th attachment or the 6th attachment.
I think if you look at the 6th one, it shows the red lines. It shows it extending into the neighborhood across Ringgold Road.
And there, if you ever, 345, there's all kinds of kids walking across
They
there.
have a lot of walkers in that school.
Yes.
I've been there when in school we were arriving and leaving, and there are a lot of walkers there. They need a safer space. I'm just gonna tell you for Thursday, plan on not giving you a second.
Yeah, I have no issue with it. I'm just trying to understand, we're donating land and it's the only asset that the school system owns. So I always ask these questions. I have for the last 4 years, and I will do it for the next 4 years. Because it's the only thing we have aside from a tax increase that we can make money off of. So that's great though. I support this too. I just want to make sure I understand. So.
And Justin, we really couldn't do anything with that land anyway, right?
I was gonna mention that too.
Yeah.
It was kind of part of the right of way anyway.
Yeah.
Where it's located, so it's never used.
Basically, we would have to do the same thing if we ever wanted to do anything. So
Yeah,
just,
no doubt. So, I had another question about it. I'm sorry. Let me see. I forgot it, but if I think of it, I'll ask you offline. Yeah, thanks.
All right. I think that's all there for our agenda. We will adjourn for just a minute and then let Mr. McClennan will open us up on facilities.
You're first in line.
Thank y'all. We'll get started with the facilities meeting. Back in July, seems like forever ago, we had our first facilities committee meeting, kind of looking at phase 0 for the MGT study. And out of that conversation, we asked Dr. Johnson to bring us the 3 options of Sears, the CSLA property, and then Lakeside Elementary. And they have done that. I think y'all have a handout that has some drawings and some numbers on it. But I think Justin and Justin have a PowerPoint for us, and they will take it away.
Thanks, Mr. McClendon. So obviously, we're working towards being the best school district in Tennessee, and this includes our facilities that falls under the effective and efficient operations. This in particular conversation, I think, deals with the long-term plan for our facilities and then optimizing our resources and our budget. So again, a little background on where we are, and Mr. McClendon kind of stepped into this. We've been talking about phase 0 quite a bit. Back in April, you guys approved an addition onto Harrison Elementary that will allow us to put Harrison and Hillcrest in that building in January. We will also take the zone students from Lakeside in August of 2021 into that building. So that's been approved. It's on schedule and work is going well at Harrison. Mr. McClendon mentioned that on July 11th, you guys had a facilities meeting and charged us with going back and looking at 3 options. Again, the CSLA site, Northgate Sears, and the Lakeside site. We mentioned in that meeting Lakeside was probably going to be the most challenging just because we had not done any behind the scenes work on it. I think we even questioned whether it would be a viable site because of the size and the shape. So tonight we're bringing you those options, and the intent in all 3 of these options that we'll go through is that this will be a K through 12 school, would remain a dedicated magnet school, and we've adjusted to look at 1,000 student capacity. I know in the past we've talked about much bigger schools for CSLA in terms of student capacity, but all 3 of these are looking at these same parameters. Again, K through 12 dedicated magnet and 1,000 students. So the Northgate Sears side, and this handout I gave you goes in order. It's a lot of the same information, but I know sometimes it's hard to see on these screens, so I wanted you to have in front of you and something to take with you. So the same information that's on the sheet I gave you is on this screen. You've seen a lot of this information. We did put some hard numbers on it, and just to give us some context. So in all 3 of those, when we talk about renovation, we're looking at $95 a square foot. For some context, we did Howard Connect a little over a year ago. We did all that work. We did the majority of that house in work, and we did it somewhere around $50 to $55 a square foot. So if we're contracting with someone, we think $95 is a pretty fair estimate when you're talking about renovation. I also want to go ahead and put this out there. If you have not been to Howard Connect, if you weren't there before the renovation and after the renovation, I think sometimes people hear renovation and they think, oh, I'm getting a secondhand setup. Howard Connect looks awesome.
It's amazing.
It's an amazing school, amazing setup, and what it looked like before to what it looks like now is completely night and day. So $95 square foot renovation on that existing 165,000 square foot. We'd have to do new construction of the gym with some classroom space of about 28,000 square feet. We have the site purchase on there, 6.4, and then some athletic fields and other things on the grounds. When you add all that up with contingency, we're looking at about $33,032,900 for that CSLA Northgate.
I just wanted to chime in real quick. On the market right now, it's about $150 a square foot for rehab work. That's what I do. And so, I mean, you're going to spend about $150 a square foot on rehabbing a 30,000 square foot building. I mean, really any property. So, of course, there could be like some bulk savings that may lower the price point a little bit, but like that's a really competitive price per square foot. I just wanted to like give everybody context. It doesn't work in that field and may not know what like kind of the going rate is for work like that per square foot.
Is that education or is that commercial?
Just it's commercial, like office, medical would probably be more like 185 to 190 a square foot. But I mean, I thought education had a pretty high, like, it's expensive to put in infrastructure and build out for education. Am I right about that?
Yeah, I mean, again, we were basing it on what we did in Howard.
Yeah, I'm just giving perspective that $95 a square foot is incredibly competitive. Like if you were to go to the marketplace, like you're going to spend about $150 a square foot.
And
It's a good thing, I think.
And just again to provide, we want to make sure that all three of these options, that they're apples to apples. So the same rehab price, the same new construction, it's the same. $95 for renovation, $215 for new construction, so that we know there's going to be a little adjustment in all these prices probably when we get to the end, but we can at least know we're looking at the same numbers based on what we have. Put at the bottom some assets and liabilities, meaning what we think is good about this site, and then some things that maybe cause us some concern or some pause. And again, we've done a lot with this Sears site and had a lot of conversations, so I wasn't going to spend a ton of time on Sears because I feel like you guys already have a pretty good understanding of Sears.
I will say, Ms. Robinson said, I looked up on commercial and schools and across the southeast, about 150 is what I saw. If you can get it for, I mean 250, I mean, if you can get it, 150 rather, if you can get it for 95, that's great, but that's not what I was saying.
And again, for this conversation, it's apples and apples because we'll get the same rehab price no matter which location, and it shows square footage of existing space.
If you can get it for 95, that's great, but if it's 150, it's going to be substantially more than that.
Right.
In the total figure.
Which would reflect in both sites.
You're right, it's going to be sites.
Yep. So the current CSLA site, and I need to be clear about this because this number looks very different than the number that the school board saw 6 or 7 years ago. I think there was around a $60 million figure thrown out at that point. And again, to make sure we understand what we're looking at, that building was a building that was similar to some of our middle high school buildings that are typically around 250,000 square feet. This building that we're proposing here, obviously you can see it's 132,000 square feet. So it's a significantly smaller building that we feel like it will accommodate the 1,000 students. At some point, when we were going back through the history of this, there was talk about CSLA being a 1,500 student, school. And so this is a 132,000 square foot building. Again, the 215, you're looking at about 28 million. There's some tear down costs, some site work for athletic fields. With the contingency, you're looking at about $35,200,000. Need to be clear on this. One of the liabilities is that this does not include any athletic buildings or any athletic seating. It does include some work for athletic fields, but it doesn't have a field house. There's not a concession stand. There's no plumbing out at those fields. So that's a significant difference. No stadium. So that's a significant difference between the old plan that you guys saw, I'm not sure, 6 or 7 years ago, and what we're presenting this evening.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
I think one of the problems with this is you were wanting to preserve this for a zone school, right? This property.
Yeah. So I'll bring that up a little bit later.
Okay.
One of the things that this does do, it doesn't help us project out of knowing that in East Brainerd we're going to have some need down the road for another elementary school or maybe even another middle high school. So. I will bring that up. Okay. So the Lakeside site, this is new work, and I put this slide in here just so people could see it because people haven't seen this setup. The gray on this slide is the existing elementary. The existing elementary school is about the same size. It's about 1,000 square feet off from the existing CSLA. So to give you some context of the size of that building. We're proposing adding a 2-story middle high school that has a gym and a new cafeteria. You see the dotted outline around the soccer field and the tennis courts. That is our existing property. And then the softball, baseball fields that are a little bit further to the southwest of the campus are currently operated by City Parks and Rec and the Lakeside Youth Association. That's Lakeside Park that's right there. There's an agreement that goes back that we found today or a couple days ago to 1978 that speaks to the agreement between City of Chattanooga and at the time Chattanooga City Schools and the use of these properties. And so there's some history there in terms of joint use and some language that we think would help us work with the city. Part of the proposal is renovating the tennis courts, which would be good for the community, and obviously renovating that soccer field, football field, which we feel like would be good for the community. This is taking into consideration, though, that we would have to have an agreement with the city to share joint use of those existing fields, tennis courts. So again, if you look at the numbers for this, again, using that $95 per square foot for renovation and the $215 for new construction, some site work on the athletic fields, we're looking at about $26.5 on renovating and adding on to this lakeside property. So again, some assets and liabilities. We feel like obviously the school fits here physically. That's one of the things that we were concerned about. It does fit on this property. It's a good use of an existing property that we have. It's also centrally located. I actually drove it today to see how far off the interstate from 153 on Highway 58. It was like 1.6 miles. If you went the other way, went down Bonnie Oaks and across Jersey Pike, it's about 1.8 miles. So it's a good location. There's some existing infrastructure and field sites. Some of the liabilities, obviously, we've got to come to that shared agreement with the city of Chattanooga, and the existing school does have some pretty significant HVAC and other renovation needs. I think that on the MGT report, the dollar amount for Lakeside was like $4.5 million in terms of renovation. Any questions about?
Yeah.
Yes.
Justin, I have something to say about this. We have an agreement with the city of Chattanooga, and they use our Washington site, correct?
I think what has happened is the same thing.
I think that we shouldn't have a problem with this myself.
No, I don't either. I think honestly the same thing with the Washington. Remember how you brought that up and everybody was like, do we have a
yeah, we have an agreement.
I think that those 1978 agreements, unless there's a new one, have expired. And so that we probably need to speak with the city.
And another
anyway.
thing, that football field is ours.
Technically
and
on our
they have a really nice football field, and it is just really close to this right here. A lot of people may not realize how close that is to having a really, really nice football field. That's one of the nicest football fields around.
Right.
And it's right there. And, you know, I think if we should be able to work something out with the city about that without any trouble.
I think so. Ms. Jones?
Hi, Justin. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this out here before the discussion gets going. Thank you for looking at the three options. And I actually had to leave the facilities meeting that day before this came out. But when the news hit that Lakeside was a possible option for CSLA, I received several calls from not only some constituents in District 5, but also from parents of Lakeside students, as well as teachers in Lakeside's building about this being a possibility. And this is one of the times when I have to do what I promised the people of District 5 that I would do. And so I have to share with you that the Lakeside community is not going to support this because they feel like, this is what it was expressed to me, that if it wasn't good enough to keep us in Lakeside, why is it good enough to put another school in there? Now, I'm not institutionalized to a building because I come from a building that my mama went to high school in. So I'm not stuck to a set of bricks, but I understand the principle of the matter. And I received it really tugged my heart, a letter from a CSLA parent who was also a Lakeside teacher, who explained to me why she felt like why Lakeside shouldn't be where her daughter, who is a CSLA student, should go to school. If she can't teach there, she done, I mean, it was a very, I mean, it really got me. But now she's no longer with the system because of some other things going on there as well. But I just want to say that, I have to say that because I have to say that. I mean, I had to go through like, I mean, it was a very heated, there was a very heated Facebook post that I had to deal with that I got upset about, my husband got upset about, some of the men in my family got upset about, because it was kind of like, you're about to let them do this to us. And although they didn't realize that, no, I'm not about to just let anybody, but I'm only one of 9 people. But I have to express that because for my community, this is often an experience. Now, once again, if Lakeside is the best for us to be stewards of our money, then of course I have to figure out how to convey that if my peers support otherwise. However, I also have concerns about if Lakeside becomes the site for CSLA, and I have my zone kids, which I'm so excited about, that are going to go into this new building in District 5, but we're losing 2 schools in District 5, and then I have a set of magnet students that I represent in District 5 that will lose their seats for magnet because they can't go to Lakeside, well, the new Harrison, because they're magnet kids, right? They're not zoned. So what happens to them? So how do I look them in the face and say, sorry? And I think we'd figure that out for them. I do believe that, because I believe that we would do what is right. But I have to express to you and that's the nice way I'm expressing it to y'all, but everything that I got. And I just have to share that because, and I honestly feel that same way. And my child would be zoned for Lakeside.
And before I finish this out, I will let you know, we've had 2 meetings with Lakeside faculty, just not about this necessarily, but this came up after that July 11th meeting. And I also had 2 parent focus groups with Lakeside parents. Again, not related to this, but it did come up in that meeting, and I felt some of the heat that I think you're talking about, and had a good conversation. So got a couple more slides. So recommendation moving forward. First of all, at some point we've got to get some direction from the board on which one of these you want us to do. It sounds like we've got a lot of time, but we've got to make some decisions and move forward. Of course, we'd have to get county commission approval for whatever we do. I'm recommending that we move forward with the Lakeside site, and there are a couple reasons for this. Number one, the existing property is already planned to go offline in August, so it's will be available and open. We believe it's an efficient and effective use of the resources that we have in that property. It continues to allow us to plan for that East Brainerd growth. We talk about the price of renovation. The price of land in East Brainerd is skyrocketing, and we've got a great piece of land sitting there that would be a great location down the road. If we do something with that and then go to try to purchase land, I think the cost is going to increase tremendously. This would get us through with phase 0, so we feel like we're not making progress with our facilities plan, but within a year we would be done, at least moving forward with the completion of phase 0, which is a huge step. It addresses 2 of our biggest facility needs. Harrison, the old Harrison would be offline. The old CSLA would be offline. It gets us a renovated Lakeside building, repurposing Hillcrest, and again, a reduction in deferred maintenance. So next steps, if the board were to put this on the agenda Thursday and approve it, is that we would immediately get started. Obviously working with county commission for approval, but we would want to get the architecture drawings done. That's usually about an 8-month process. We want to press them to make sure that it's done as quickly as possible so we can get the bid out and begin work. From there, I think the board's got to start again addressing phase 1 and where we want to move with that part of the facilities plan. Some kind of justifications for why we think this is the best use of the money is we're not going to be going to the county commission and asking for a big sum of money. We think that we've got right at this amount maybe a little bit less to do this building. We have to identify what we're doing the rest of that bond money by March 2021. So we've got about 5-6 months because it's that bond, crazy to think it was 3 years ago.
There's an expiration on it?
Yes. And so we've got to make some decisions in terms of that. There might be some extensions, but the existing, what we heard from the county finance this past week is March 2021. Again, the deferred maintenance numbers, I still think CSLA at 7.5 million is a light number, but that's what MGT said. And so just apples to apples, there's 7.5 and 4.5 on Lakeside. So you're looking at about 12 million in deferred maintenance that we're taking off the books. And again, completion of phase 0.
Justin, can I make one point?
Yes, ma'am.
That we're not closing Lakeside to put this there. It's going to close.
It's closing already.
It's closing anyway. So I think
That's
that
correct.
people need to be advised of that. We're not closing it to put a school
We had
there.
started the conversation with Lakeside closing prior to the board asking us to even look at this.
Right, but I think the argument.
But why did we recommend that Lakeside be closed and those students be moved into Harrison?
Yeah, so, just real quick, so I want to take us macro to come back down micro. We're dealing with an individual building, but sometimes we can miss the fact that we got 7.5 million square feet and $1 billion in deferred maintenance. So we're trying to make a comprehensive decision about a school system with sensitivity to the individual needs of a community. And so I think to Justin's point, I had a chance to be on some of those calls. I definitely hear and feel the heat. I actually had a chance to have a follow-up conversation with a lady who's a parent who was a student at CSLA, but is a parent now of a child at Lakeside. And her story is phenomenal. But besides all that, I absolutely know, just from what I've heard and learned, that there's significant importance there. I think one of the things moving to solution that could definitely be considered if the board recommended, I think you've got a faction of students that are magnet students at Lakeside, and that's the biggest question. I would submit that the board consider recommending to us for that group of student instituting some type of, I don't want to say policy, but expectation, whatever you want to call it, where we either give them heavier weight in the lottery that's coming up for, so I'm just throwing things out there as options, or give us some type of recommendation, and maybe we take it to that community and say what you want, you know what I mean, in regards to supporting the magnet seated students that are there. That's something I think the board can give us direction on doing. But you are dealing with a complex thing. One other thing I want to speak to is the football field real quickly. I know that or the stadium, the soccer is what CSLA would be using it for. I think there's an opportunity to share there and probably really enhance the really good facilities that are already there. I've been by there on Saturdays and seen a lot of activity going on, and so again, I think there's some opportunity there.
Steve.
May I?
Yeah, Steve, you can.
I had, Dr. Johnson, I had my hand up to say exactly what you said. Why don't we prioritize the magnet school?
No, just give them a key.
Lakeside, give them a priority in going into the CSLA. That was just a thought that I had. The other thing we have, help me now, we have, correct me if I'm wrong, approximately of that bond money, 22 million available. The way my figures, am I wrong?
I think it's closer to 25. Justin and I were looking at it today, and it depends on where Harrison ends up and where East Hamilton ends up. But we're thinking it's somewhere closer to 25.
My figures had it at 22. I don't think there's any way we get it at 26. I hope you can. I hope and pray you can. I don't think you can. But that's the most economic way of doing it. And so this would be contingent on getting the money from the county, the additional money needed, and working out an agreement with the city.
Yeah, so I don't think we would ask for additional money. I think that we look at where East Hamilton comes out and we get started on this project. If we get down the road and we're $1 million over, then it's maybe a conversation about fund balance. But again, I think this is a closer. This is a closer option of where we can actually get started. I think you're looking at the other ones that are 10 million over, 9 million over. It's hard to even get started on that project when you're that short.
Caritza.
Okay, so if that is the pleasure of the body, I would say that I don't want to weigh them anything, Dr. Highlander. I think we should find them a space in a magnet school because their parents went through a process. Just like every other parent that's in a magnet school, every other parent of a child in a magnet school, they went through a process. And if we are closing their school for whatever reason and distributing for whatever reason, they are still a magnet student. And I don't think it's fair and it's not right to weigh them anything. They should, I would love for them to be right there. But if that's not the case, in some buildings, there's a magnet school that their parent is okay with because their parent put Lakeside on the list for magnet when they put them in the lottery.
Chris, how many people are you talking about?
I don't know the number, but I honestly don't know the exact number. But the school is pretty much the zone. The magnet component, if I'm not mistaken, is larger than the zone component, right? No, my Tyner school is like that. Yeah. I'm sorry. I got another school, but there is
we think it's a manageable enough number. We're just sitting here, this small talking about. We think it's a manageable enough number. Look, we work at pleasure of the board, so I do anyway, and so whatever the board directs me to do in regards to this group of students, we can work to figure out. Okay, and so I agree that they're absolutely magnet students, and we need to go. Okay, and let's be clear, because I want to put this out while we're having this conversation. To be really clear, as you talk about the community. Lakeside wasn't on the radar at all as part of this conversation necessarily. I mean, when we started, back when we started Tyron, we looked at Sears. Then, in the last conversation, it came up to go back and look at Lakeside. So that's what we've done. Our intent all along has been to really close Lakeside and to create, not say close it, but to put so we're forgetting the front end of it. Also those zone students at Lakeside are going to be at Harrison, which is a top-notch, facility-wise in school. And where we're trying to get is all of our facilities up to a standard. And so that's really been our goal that we've been going after aggressively. So when the board brought this up in the last meeting, just in doing our due diligence, I think to your point, Caritza, absolutely, when we think about the group of magnet students, that's one of the things that we heard on the call as well.
Right, and I get, like I said, I get doing the due diligence. I'm not gonna tell you, and this is nothing I didn't share. I think I talked to all three of y'all that week. Something I didn't share with them. I'm in the same space as my community, but I'm also in the same space of doing what is right. And so I am torn. I am very torn. But I just wanted to put that out there. When you say weigh and stuff, I'm like, no, you're not weighing anything because,
right.
No, you just don't weigh. That's just not what you do. You figure out how to give them the same opportunity that they had before we made a decision. And that's just what's right.
Yeah.
Tiffany.
Yeah, and I guess I have a few questions, but just to piggyback on what Caritza is saying, I wholeheartedly agree with her. I think that what's important is that the public does not realize that Lakeside is a magnet school. A lot of people don't realize that, and that it's being closed. And so there are a group of magnet students that now are just going to have to have a new home, which hopefully Harrison, which is a great option, but that was leaving a group of kids with not the option that their parents worked hard to get them. And just basically, if we were closing CSAS or CSLA, the uproar would have been very visual and present. So, and I am pro all three of those schools. So that does not mean that my statement is against anyone. But all that to say, if we were to move forward, the only way that I could support this would be that those students have a seat at CSLA and not weighted, although that is a great suggestion, but it has to be a true seat. So I could not agree with you more. And I think it's important that we, really stick to our guns on how we're treating this, how we're treating these students that, like Caritza said, their parents worked hard to get them a seat at this magnet school. And we need to treat it the same way that we would treat our larger magnet schools. So anyways, all that said, okay, so can you remind me, Dr. Robertson, what were the original capacity plans for CSLA?
1,300.
1,300, okay.
I'm sorry. That's what we presented in the last 5 to 6 months. It goes back years ago to
yes,
upwards
absolutely.
of 1,500, 1,600.
Yes, I'm exhausted from this project. I'm just going to be really real here. I want to get this figured out because I cannot work on this for the next 4 years. So all that said, I just could not remember.
4 years if we're still working on this.
I think y'all were working on it before I got on the board, so poor Rhonda. So
I guess Ms. Thurman and who else would be here 4 more years, but.
Okay, so I guess what I just want to better understand is why was the CSLA site said to me for the last 4 years to not be a viable site, but now it is?
It's never not been a viable site, but if you go back, and I should know the exact number of years, but I was thinking about another school at the time, 6 or 7 years ago when it was initially proposed as a site. The number was a shocking number. It was like 66 million, something like that. And so it was never not a viable site. It just was so expensive that it took everybody back. So that proposal was for a similar building to if you think about buildings, it would be similar to like an East Hamilton or a Signal Mountain, one that's like 250,000 square feet, 2 gyms.
And how many students would that have held?
At that point, I think they were talking about 1,600.
That's what I thought. Okay, all right. So I just want to be clear that we're not talking about the same thing as what we've heard in the last 4 years when it comes to pricing. The public has to know that. CSLA parents must know that.
And that included a full athletic package, a stadium, bleachers, field houses.
Okay. There, unfortunately, has been so much discussion around this and so many different numbers thrown around over the last few years that there's now distrust about this project. And I'm sure there was distrust prior to that. So I'm asking these questions because I want people to understand really where we are and why we're at the point of proposing what we're proposing and the numbers that come with it. So thank you for that. So the 62 million would have been 1,600 students in a very elaborate campus with athletics and all. Okay. All right. But there are no flooding issues at the CSLA site like that. I was always under the impression that there was dirt issues that you could not develop on that site.
No, that's never been an issue.
No. Somewhere along the way, that got posted on Facebook. I don't know.
I think there was concern that when you go back to that far corner, that 35 acres, there's a railroad track.
Okay.
There was some concern that it might be flood issues, but I think Justin, last year or 2 years ago, I asked you about that. And it's not that, because that was a misconception that I heard.
Perfect. I just want it to be recorded that is the case. Okay. My last question is, so we originally started out with, I think, about 34, maybe 35 million for this project.
27.8.
We started with $27,800,000 for this project. Okay. How much did we spend on figuring out if Tyner was a fit? Basically, how much money have we spent to figure out what would actually work for CSLA? And then what do we actually have the money for at this point?
We can't spend anything at Tyner though, right?
Well, so you've got your architect
fees.
Yeah, you've got your architect fees, but that's been the same fees. We use the same architect and budgeted, into it. So, I've talked about CSLA, this project so much, I forgot the second part of your question, so please ask it again.
I'm just trying to understand how much money we started out with 3 years ago whenever we approved the project list.
27.8.
27.8. Mm-hmm. $27.8 million. Okay. And we have enough money to do this project at Lakeside, but not at the other properties without going to the county commission to receive more money.
That is correct. Very, very close. So, again, we're trying to peel a big onion here and, trying to get to the phase 1 of our plan and,
by the time you save the maintenance money, you really
absolutely
offset a few million.
Yeah, and some of the older buildings, I think, so when you start talking about, even though the new Harrison's a newer building, when you start looking at HVAC and some of those areas where there are some efficiencies to be had, and then, just from a standpoint of, it's a win-win because you're able to provide better services academically to students. A lot of times in a building like Harrison, you're able to look at your counselor structure and look at your art teacher structure, et cetera. Whereas, you're kind of doing a 2-day-a-week, person here and 2-day-a-week person there because the school enrollments are so small at, a Lakeside or Harrison or, Hillcrest. So just operationally, it provides efficiency. Okay. And we'll see some of those efficiencies going forward.
The lawn money.
I got Jenny real fast, so I'll come back to you. Hey, Jenny.
Okay, so as I consider this, and I believe that I was the one after we talked at length that Saturday about Lakeside as a possibility. I think I was the one that said, just, can we do, fine, let's just get some numbers on it. And not too long after, I realized I felt like that was a mistake because it did not take the big picture into account. It took a very small portion of the picture into account. And I think that it underscores for me the necessity of us as a board determining what our values are for our overall building plan. Because to Caritz's point, this is a school in a neighborhood that is full of black and brown faces, a school that was at 91% capacity compared to white schools that are at much lower capacity, that we decided in a building that the MGT study said failed, and that we need that. So our decision was that the recommendation was, this is a building that is it's not worth it to remodel this building. You should move students out of it somewhere else. And so that was easy enough for all of us to say, that's why we're going to move Lakeside. If I remember, that's why we said, absolutely, we've got this snazzy new place, we'll put these students in it. It's not worth it to rebuild this building. And now we're talking about rebuilding this building for a whole bunch of upper middle class, not so diverse faces. And so I think in a neighborhood that has said, we don't want you to do this, and I have a very strong feeling that if this was in a neighborhood of white parents, that we would be thinking about this very differently when they were very frustrated that we were coming in to build a 1,000 student facility. I've also heard that the city council person for this area is not happy with this plan. So we have the practical reality that the money makes sense, but I question, does the money make sense right now for this one thing? And I am a huge proponent for looking at this from a bird's eye view, so I would like us to do that for a minute. If we make a decision to take a building that our study recommended be taken offline completely and remodel it, what does that do to every other building on here that we have people that we're saying, we're going to take you out of your building, and now we got to remodel that? So I think we are in danger of setting a precedent with that.
Yeah.
I think also, so is it truly a move toward efficient, effective operations? So I'd like us to talk about that. And the other piece is, I want us to talk about racial equity. I think we're gonna do it probably in September, and how much it matters to us. You know, I've told you guys it matters to me, and everybody really said that it mattered to them too. You know, if we do this because it makes sense at this point in time with the money in time, at this moment, what's the next commitment that we make to students who have typically been marginalized? What school gets the next new building? Because I would sure want it to be Clifton Hills or one of our other deep inner city schools that has
Tyner.
Tyner, thank you. Yeah, Tyner.
Clifton Hills.
So that's Tyner that has tons and tons of problems. Like, what I don't want to have happen is that then they get jumped over and continue to have to go to school in a facility that is just a tear down.
If y'all take, I'm just saying, I'm just saying, and like I say, I'm torn because I know we got to get rid of CSLA, but I'm telling you, if that happens and then we don't address Tyner,
Yeah.
one of y'all can represent District 5 and take that heat, because I'm not.
Well, and outside of heat, is it the right thing to do?
That is the right thing to do, but I'm saying, they know I believe that, but I'm not gonna take the heat for y'all. I'm gonna send that fire y'all way.
Yeah, and you should. So this is one small piece in a very large puzzle, but if we don't have some goggles through which we make our decisions, we're going to be willy-nilly here and there for the next 20 years, the way that we've done it for the last 20 years. And I don't want to do that.
So can I just make a counterpoint to your argument? I guess what I am confused, and I hear you and I feel you, and I'm on so many of the same pages as you. I think you know that. I guess I'm confused though on if we are so focused on effective and efficient operations, why did Sears leave the conversation? Because that was the most efficient and effective operational solution to this. And in my opinion, it was the most efficient answer to the larger scale puzzle that we have of our facility needs. It was setting the tone for how to innovate when it comes to real estate and education. And now I don't even think it's alive anymore. And if it is, I just am not aware of the status of it. So, I guess, to counter your argument, why did we move away from Sears?
Well, so I can speak to why I even brought it up, because we had that very lengthy, well, it actually ran pretty smoothly, but it was a long Saturday morning meeting, a 3-hour conversation about facilities. And Rhonda had ideas, Steve had ideas, people had walked things, and it just, for me, it was like, okay, we can't move on from this until we have data. So I didn't have an hypothesis that they were going to come back and recommend us.
Who was walking stuff?
I believe Steve and
y'all didn't invite me on the walk.
No, and they walked it with. They said they walked it with Tim Boyd
or Sears. Which one did everybody walk?
No, they walked Lakeside with Tim Boyd. Am I right?
I wasn't invited either.
They didn't invite us on the walk.
No, you walked which one?
Well, there were a lot of commissioners who went over there. I mean, there were commissioners.
But they had walked it beforehand, and I'm.
Yeah.
Are you
Lakeside
saying
and Washington Alternative.
And I'm sorry, Jenny, I wasn't expecting you to know the answer. I was just curious, why did we move away from Sears, though?
So,
Justin, I'll let you.
I just want to just say, we just want direction on what
I know you do. Absolutely. You've done nothing wrong. You guys are doing exactly what we're asking you to do.
We've been scrambling, and I know Justin Witt over there is probably the worst one that's been scrambling. We're jumping from thing to thing, trying to figure it out. And I agree, we try to be innovative and think outside the box. Sears Project was absolutely that. When we had our I'm gonna call it retreat, when we had our building session on Saturday morning, it was about efficiency. So we looked at this project, we brought numbers back. So we just need direction on what the board's pleasure is, and let's move forward, because we still, at the end of the day, you still got kids in buildings, in my opinion, that aren't good.
Right.
And if we don't do something, doing something at this stage is better than doing nothing. We've got, and I can name them, y'all, and I'm just gonna be real frank, on the record, CSLA is a bad building.
Yes.
Tyler Middle High is a bad building. I've heard Solid Days Mill. We got work to do across our district on these school buildings. And I'll say this, the first building we started with renovating and thinking differently about was Howard Connect. And I think before, when I didn't even know the system really well at that point. When Justin, we can redo it. And then I walked in that building shortly after. I said, you just set me up, But then to think about what it is right now, I didn't say it really, but I mean, to think about what it is right now and the way that building has been renovated, really, I think has opened our eyes to thinking differently about buildings and schools. So at the end of the day, our only goal is to get every student in a great facility, and there's no excuse for us to not get everybody in a great facility. The last thing I'll say is that we're making decisions and recommendations from the standpoint of how do we become most efficient and most effective. And that's at the heart and core of our decision for every single child in every single community. And I think some of these conversations about, where we are, conversation the board needs to have, but we just really need direction at this point in regards to what the board's pleasure is for this property.
I'll speak to the Lakeside. I had CSLA parents bring it to my attention.
Wait, Lakeside or Sears?
Lakeside.
Okay.
So that's kind of where I got it from them, because it wasn't on my radar, but they said, hey, is this an option? So that's where it came from. But Steve.
Thank you. Try to be patient here. Let me ask a couple of things. Justin, the $27 million that bond money, did that include, I know it was for putting CSLA at Tyner Middle, but did that include the renovation of Tyner High School into a middle high? Is that 27 included in that?
I'd have to ask Justin Wood. I wasn't involved.
Yeah, that was part of the time, and that's really what killed that project was the more in depth and the more fire code upgrades and the more the elevator, and that's what really that I'm thankful for that going through that process brought Tyler to the forefront, and we realized what kind of shape it's in. And then once we saw the shape that it was in, we just the funds that were available and honestly just the investment in that existing building did not make sense.
I mean, my mother graduated in the core of that building during World War II.
Yeah.
In Tanner High School. And I went to Tanner Junior High, not high school, but I mean, it is old. Now, there's some newer parts of it that aren't. Let me finish.
You're fine.
But I'm concerned about that. We have said through the years, we have prioritized the buildings. Right now, correct me if I'm wrong, and I facilities man, correct me, CSLA was at the top of the chart. It's the worst facility, and we're trying, and I want to deal with every child, black, white, inner city, rural. I want to meet the needs of, like Dr. Johnson, every single child, give them the best possible facility at all. But we have to start somewhere, doing what we can. And the Northgate site, for one, it's got some good possibilities. It's about $10 million more, which we don't have. Right now, we'd have to wait, and I don't think we're going to get it with all the financial crunch that we're going through in the pandemic. But according to them, that we're close to having the money to develop it here, and it's the #1 priority. I think Tanner High School, or if we're going to make it middle hour, or whatever we're going to do, we need to do something for them too. That should be maybe the very next thing that we do. But right now, we have tried to go through. Harrison was abysmal. I mean, we've got a principal that had to take a deferred duty, I guess you call it, wouldn't you, because of health reasons there, and children have, and it was horrible. I could smell the stuff when I would go through Harrison Elementary, and I'm thankful that we got a new in there. But we have prioritized CSLA, and this is a doable, financially doable thing, and I thank you for your efforts. And if someone can come up with an extra $10 million, but another point for Lakeside, but I agree with what I think Tiffany that brought it up, and I thought of what Dr. Johnson said. The Lakeside kids are magnet students. They don't need to reapply. They're magnet students. They need to go in. If those parents want them to go to CSOA, they should walk right in as full-fledged magnet students there. But since we have got that, CSOA is the #1 priority building, and that's one that we can knock off. I'd say, I'm hoping that we can knock it off at a reasonable price.
Rhonda.
Okay, just a point about these students being put out of their school. They're not going to be put out of their school. If you put another school where there was and put those students back in it, they're just going to be in a magnet school with a different name.
No, but I mean, I was just saying make sure that's the plan.
I'm talking about.
I'm saying all the zone kids.
She said the black faces and the brown faces, we would be putting them out and putting them. They're going to be, if we make arrangements as a board to put them in school, they're going to be in the school on the same property, just with a different name.
Well, I'm talking about the zone children, though.
And then the zone students are going to be going to a brand new school, which didn't happen in my district when we closed Fallen Water Elementary. Our kids now have to go about 12 miles to a school when there used to be a school in our neighborhood. So it doesn't really, we're not picking on any one group of students over another, because the school that was just a block from my house is now, 10, 12 miles away.
So are we, so I'm just saying it has nothing to do with
equity or whatever. Those kids are going to be in a new school, all the students in that school are going to be in a brand new building. So it's not like we're displacing those students or doing anything to them. They're going to be in a new school, all of them, if we can get them in the new CSLA.
So what we did with making the decision to move the zone students from Lakeside to Harrison Elementary aligns with the bigger picture idea within the MGT plan to move into larger schools, to move away from very small zoned schools. So that was in line with what we're doing. My point about these children being displaced is that we have Alpine Crest, Hickson Elementary School, Rivermont Elementary School, and DuPont Elementary School, all of which have been in conversations. And then we begin to hear neighborhoods say, I don't want my child to go to a big school. I don't want my child to have to go far. It happened in Fallingwater that we made the decision for efficiency that we were going to create larger schools. So my point is, we need to take every kid into account. And when we make our plan for the entire district, we need to have some consistent thought processes so that if, for example, the families at Alpine Crest rise up and say, no way, you can't do this because I don't want to go far from my school, we at this point can say, we've moved other kids in Fallingwater here. We've moved other kids in Harrison here. Like this is, I feel like we need consistency. And what we're doing now is like we're telling CSAS and Normal Park, your buildings need to go. You need to move, you need to relocate because they're so bad we can't put kids in them. And we're taking a building that we say is so bad we can't put kids in, and we're going to put kids in it, even though we're going to remodel it, but we're going to spend the money there. So just recognize with me, looking down the path at this, we will have those same conversations. And so if the children at Lakeside didn't get to stay in their building, magnet or otherwise, what kids are going to get to stay in their building? And is that going to be something that is equitable for every kid in Hamilton County? Are they all going to be looked at with the same razor?
Yeah.
Tiffany?
Yeah. So I did want to circle back and better understand the Sears situation because I don't have clarity on what's going on with that deal, and I'm told by some people that it's dead. But I'm seeing it in a presentation. So first of all, I appreciate Jenny bringing up the fact that like the Lakeside situation does not match our overall plan. I agree with you on that. I do feel like Sears is the best solution to meeting the needs of, everything we're trying to accomplish here. So I want to better understand what's going on with that transaction. Do we even have the option to put it under contract any longer? Also, why would Steve made the comment that we're 10 million over budget on that, and I think he's pretty close to being right on that. But we don't have to purchase JCPenney's, and I think that $10 million being over. But does it include JCPenney's? No. It doesn't. Okay. All right. Well, then we're still $10 million under budget.
We're still over.
All right.
Yeah, and we're not sure if that's even.
So we don't even know. So we don't even. So then.
It was put up there so number one, y'all could see numbers because there was questions when we initially brought it forward about would it be more efficient, and so we put numbers just to provide context.
So do we have 3 options? Okay, I want to know what I want to know. What do I even have the ability to vote on if I'm voting on Thursday? Do I have 3 options?
Yeah,
it sounds like I don't.
Well, I think you do. When I look at it, we haven't engaged any deeper with Sears because it's kind of been a halt, right? And so, it's been on hold as far as where things are. So, I don't know, you may have some conversation, but we've been busy working on this because the board sent us to start working on this Lakeside conversation. That's where we've put a lot of our attention and effort,
But you always work on multiple deals at once. You don't put your eggs in just one basket.
I get it, but you also try and open up schools and get.
I hear you. I get it. Trust me, that was not a diss on the work that you guys are doing.
Part of the issue also is when we pushed. I mean, we worked with the owner of the Sears building to a point that he essentially said either vote on it or not, and the board chose not to vote on it.
So really, you have 2 options.
It put it off another month, which. We certainly can go back and see if it's still an option, but, the last conversation that we had with them, board votes on it. At that point, it was the June board meeting, and there wasn't a decision to vote on it.
Yeah, and I'm still unclear why that vote was taken off the table, to be honest with you. I had planned to vote yes for that, to be really honest. And I'm still unclear why that vote was taken off the table. No one's given me an answer on that. None of my fellow board members have told me why. And
because the price went up.
But the board should have discussion about that rather than just assuming that it was going to have no support. And because now what we're being asked to do is to make a decision this week And we're given three options, but I really
It's
don't
not on
have
the
three
agenda for
options.
Thursday.
Well, we talked about
I
it.
understand, but we were asked to,
But to be clear,
and I
you don't,
wasn't there.
the board
I was
doesn't
on
have to,
vacation.
the
So-
board's got to make a decision on something, but
By
the
March
board doesn't have
2021.
to make
March
this
2021.
decision.
Right.
If the board wants to send us in a different direction, we'll absolutely do that. We've just got to have some direction, and I mean, I'll be honest, we don't have the direction around this project.
I definitely agree with you on that.
We've chased it multiple ways.
I know.
and
You are
trying to
directionless.
do,
Okay.
are just trying to.
So I wanted to push in the direction of Sears, but now I realize that I cannot push in the direction of
I'll
Sears.
go back to the owner and see if that's an option. So
Well, Spirit,
I
Halloween is
think
right
that
Go ahead.
trying to be clear about where we are, I think there's some important things that are getting missed on it.
Well, and I'm sure you're right, but I'm trying to understand what are our actual options. So is it that we could potentially vote on either Lakeside or the current CSLA property? Like, you basically could not turn around a new plan, like a new offer on Sears in 48 hours if we were to vote on Thursday.
I'll call Mr. Issa right after this.
Well, and
But then we'll have to spend time. I mean, I just thought that right now we had like really good understanding of what the possibility was of Sears is because it was on the presentation.
Well, it's not on the presentation as a option necessarily, right? So we said these are the three things that we've looked at and we've explored. If the board wants to direct us, and it's different in the public than private. We had this conversation, like we can't navigate, there's nothing that's navigated privately in our world, and in real estate, that hurts you.
I agree.
And so for us, so if the board directs us to go after, because what we asked for was the opportunity to the approval to go into negotiation with Sears, then we absolutely will. If the board says, hey, we want you to, let's go after this Lakeside, you know what I mean, then we absolutely will. Whatever the board tells us to do at this point is what we, you know what I mean, is what we're more than willing and agreeable to do.
I don't know what to tell you to do. Because, like, this is exhausting. And, I mean, I'm just going to be honest, like, there's no good solution right now. And so I'd almost rather just not vote.
Well, I personally think we have a good solution as far as using property that we do have at Lakeside. I think that is being good stewards of our property, being good stewards. No, it's not ideal, but it was like something that was brought forward and that we can renovate. Like you said earlier, you're all about keeping our property. We're keeping our property. We're renovating it, and we're gonna, use it for and renovate. As a board member that's been on the board, the first thing that we were tasked with was CSLA. That was a priority school. I would love nothing more than to go out as a board member knowing that CSLA is going to get a home. I mean, it's just been pushed aside. I do hear what you say, what you said, Jenny, as well, but I also think that if the students at Lakeside, that they have a seat at that school when CSLA is built, I think it'd be awesome. CSLA is a diverse school. That's diverse itself. I think it'd be great to be right there. What it would bring to that community, I think would be, I don't know if you've been in CSLA and see in the diversity, but it's black, brown, yellow. I mean, it's just a diverse mix of all kinds of people, and I think it'd be a great asset to that community myself. So I think that, to look at it in that aspect is I don't know, maybe that community would embrace having such a great school there, and more students could apply there that had never even thought about it. And we're all about options. We're providing so many different opportunities for our students. That's a new opportunity for that community to be proud of a new school in that community. And I think, wow, I look at it that way as well, not as a negative, but as a positive, that we're taking something that was torn down and building it back up. And so I'm kind of looking at it from a different lens.
Though you do move the children who lived in that community out of that community to go to school.
Well, but that was already planned.
Because the building was gonna
No,
be
we,
left.
And how far is Lakeside from Harrison?
So it's
Say
about
that again.
5 to 7 minutes.
It's probably 3 miles at most, yeah, it's not, it's.
May I ask, just more of like a,
I've got Caritza real
Oh,
fast.
sorry,
She's been
sorry.
waiting.
So I don't think that anybody, myself or the District 5, discredits what CSLA is. I don't think that's the case at all. Did you hear me?
no.
I said, I don't think that and I know for myself or anybody else, pretty much in Chattanooga, in District 5, or whatever, that we discredit what CSLA is, right? Nobody discredits that. We know that great things happen in all of our school buildings and great things happen in CSLA. For me, I mean, I've said what I've said, and I don't want anybody to make their decision based on me. I'm speaking for my community. And I know that honestly, probably every kid in Lakeside may have at some point been on the list for a CSLA or a CSAS. I mean, I'm not gonna say they haven't. I just want us, whatever the board decides, of course, like I said earlier, I'll have to figure that out and how to address that with my constituents. But I want us moving forward to realize that for me, I'm talking about more than just a building. It's like when Jeannie talks about a precedence, that she's talking about a precedence. I'm speaking to a precedence now. So my thing is, I don't want it to continue to become a precedence that we keep taking buildings from over here, take a building some other places too. And I'm all about being a good steward. So I mean, I see where this is gonna go, and I'm processing. So I'm gonna be okay, and District 5 gonna be okay too, because right, they're gonna come to our community and they're gonna love being in our community. We're not gonna become a CSLA community. They're gonna love becoming a part of District 5. Just like I hope Harrison loves becoming a part of District 5, because there's a rich heritage there. You're moving into our district. We want to become one big district and a family. I don't want it to be us and a day, and I don't think it will. I just wanted to make sure that if there is a building at Alpine Crest and it's available, then we look at that too. Because historically, and I'm not saying that nobody that made a decision did that. I'm just saying historically, this is what happens. So moving forward, get a new school, we get a new magnet school. I'm glad another school is going to come back into District 5. If that's what happens, it is what it is. Now, for me, I asked for my mic to be cut on because I want to know what's going to happen in phase 1. Because now that 5 no longer has Lakeside and Hillcrest, and we still have a building that we keep forgetting about, that we talked about in the beginning, which is Tyner. And MGT is telling us they need a new building. We decided, like Justin said, after we looked at it, let's not put the money here, we need a new building. I would hope in phase 1 that Tyner Middle High becomes a topic of priority. Because it looks like it probably still looked like, and I didn't go there then, but it probably still looked like when Dr. Highlander Mama was in the middle of the core. And it probably looked like when Joe Wingate was in there. I'm just being honest. So I want Tyner to get a new building. So my thing is, whatever's got to come, and we have to do whatever we have to do, and we have to do what's right. And I think at some point the people will understand that. I want to know, what are we going to do right next? So there was a charge to the executive cabinet. They did what the board asked them to do. Now there's a charge to us, and we have to do what we need to do. Real leadership is not always comfortable, and I get it. So we do have to make a choice. Chips will fall where they may on Thursday if that's what the vote is. My biggest concern are what are the next steps, because now that we know that Lakeside was falling apart, we knew that Harrison was falling apart when Dr. Highlander Mama was there.
When I was there.
Well, however, we knew that Falling Water was falling apart, and we addressed it. I'm saying we know these things. What are we going to do about them, and how are we going to prioritize them so it doesn't continue to look to the public like we're always focusing on one area? And so that's my charge to my board members, not to the executive cabinet, because they're like they said, they only did what we asked them to do. And I get it, because I wasn't on the call, so I ain't ask them, but they only did what the board asked them to do, because I got up before then. But I understand that, and I understand the frustration with everybody, because I too want to get CSLA off my plate. But I just want us to think about that, because I don't want to get to phase 1 and we talking about a new East Hamilton High because they did the numbers wrong, because I ain't voting. if Tina don't get a new, I'm just telling you. They gonna get them numbers right. They gonna learn the new math, Rhonda, in East Hampton, or they not getting nothing else from Carissa.
You got my vote, sister.
And I'm just sorry, this is where I'm at. And so I want everybody to be in something that's nice and we talk about equality and equity, but I don't even want the crates to level them off. I just don't want the fence. I don't want the crates. I just want everybody standing on the ball field. But I just want to make sure that to my peers that once this is done, we have to address what's right at the next steps, because the children see the difference, and that's what matters to me.
One thing I just want to mention real quick. I think the conversation's been phenomenal. We missed each other face to face. We're getting it all in. But I think there also is a funding body conversation, and that's beyond me.
Yes.
But what ends up happening, and I've just watched my few years here right now. What ends up happening is, when you do get the opportunity to have some funds, you've got this backlog of other issues that are there, and so you've got usually the impetus for having those resources is there's growth in an area, and so before you can figure out what you need to do for deferred maintenance, you got to address growth because you're busting at the seams over here, over there. And we're on this really it's almost like a hamster on a wheel. So I really think there's a funding body conversation to have as well about, okay, here are our facility needs. Here's our phase 1, phase 2. How are we going to fund this strategically over the course of the next decade, 15 years, 20, whatever the number is, because they're bites of the elephant that have got to be taken over time. The community I just left has grown 1,000 students a year, 1,000 students a year. And so the funding body there decided we got to figure out a funding mechanism to build schools. And they figured out a funding mechanism to build schools, and that's what you see happening across the country. Williamson County, other places are doing it, and so I think we've got facility needs that are significant in Hamilton County,
and I want to say
across
this,
our county.
Not to cut Dr. Johnson off, and when we talk about our funding body, and I'm about to get on the soapbox, they always want us to talk to them, but didn't nobody talk to me when they came and walked some campuses in District 5. I don't think they called me or Commissioner Jeter. Some of my board peers didn't call me or Commissioner Jeter. And I don't think I will walk any property about any decision or any recommendation in anybody else's district and not reach out to them. So I just want to put that out there. Mm-hmm. And I would appreciate the same respect.
Okay. What did we decide if we leave the lakeside property alone and we don't do anything with it? What did we decide to do with it?
We didn't have a plan.
Okay.
with what to do with it at this point. There's talks about like old West 40th is falling down. Do we move some of the staff from West 40th? Do we put some other programming in at Lakeside? I do want to be clear though, and I had this conversation with the parents when we talk about Lakeside score was not such that we were saying it immediately. Like there were a number of schools on the score. I mean, just for clarification, their total score was 63.6, where CSLA's is a 39.
Right. Yeah, I'm just asking because I'm just curious because we're coming to the point where we would have potentially some properties to sell, and I just wondered, are you guys starting to think about like, okay, well, as the puzzle pieces move, especially with the area that we're talking about, like, so would we sell Lakeside if we don't renovate it?
And again, I've been
or maybe we sell
this
West 40th.
job for 8 months, so talking from a little bit of perspective, but I've been in the district for 12 years. I think what's really hard, what I found with this is really hard, is going back to what Ms. Hill said, is what is our direction?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And so if we knew, that's why I said next step is we've really got to start, even without funding, we really need to start understanding what phase 1 looks like, so then we could think more strategically and not react to situations. Right now, I feel like which I don't like. I know Dr. Johnson doesn't like us doing this, but I feel like we are reacting to situations.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
talk about CSLA and, you know, I understand why they're frustrated. You know, I think that the first conversation about a new CSLA, Ms. Thurman, happened in 1999. I understand why CSLA is frustrated, but you know, for us to think strategically and move down the field, let's get this done. And then without funding, knowing what's going to happen, let's get those values out there. Let's get that direction so that we can start strategically thinking and get some of, you know, this billion-dollar problem under control.
Yeah, I'm trying to do that with you in the sense that if I don't support Lakeside and I want CSLA's current property to be renovated, I want to understand how we close that funding gap. And one way may be to sell a Lakeside property. So that's why I'm asking that question, because if,
so there was a property
if that's the board's desire is to go after that property, which I have no idea if it is.
There was a property right behind Lakeside that went up for sale a month and a half ago.
Like 14
right after
acres.
we started, it was 15 acres and it sold for like, was it 1.5 or 1.2?
Right. Okay.
How much was it?
It's about the same size as our property. It was like 17.
So we already have a comp for about $8 million.
No, 1 point.
Oh, 1 point. Okay, got it. Okay.
1.4 or 1.5, I think.
Okay. So I just wanted to better understand, are we going to start looking at selling some of our properties? And if we were, then that could be a way to close the funding gap if we did not vote in favor of the Lakeside property.
So Cap, just the point I was making about the price of the property and
it
you
may not be worth
selling.
selling.
You know it.
Yeah.
The price of the East Brainerd property is going to be way higher.
Way more, right.
Way higher. So you've got 39 acres at CSLA.
Right.
For us to get another 39 acres, we spend
we
what
wouldn't
we'd spend on
we wouldn't sell that property though.
No.
Right. That's what we've talked about. So, but we've not talked about what we would do with Lakeside if we did nothing with it at all. So, and I hear you, like, yes, you need the board to help you put together a strategy. The board is also not made up of 9 real estate professionals that have ever done this before. I mean, we have, like, even our, our most veteran school board member, you didn't build buildings every single year for the last 16 years. So this is a bunch of them. But my point is that this is uncharted territory for a lot of us. So, so then my last question is, Tucker, what do your CSLA parents want? Because I was told that you guys had a meeting last night, maybe about 100 families were on a Zoom call to look at all of this. And I've been getting phone calls all day about it. So I'd also love to get this information before families get it. So, but I'd love to know, what do your CSLA families want out of these 2 options?
So I was waiting before everyone else spoke, before I speak.
I have a couple other questions if you wanted to.
Yeah, you can wait. You can wait to answer it, but but I do think that answer is important to this discussion if we decide to vote on Thursday.
To that point, I think if that community's opinion is important, then the Lakeside community's opinion is also important.
I couldn't agree more. They're weighted the same to me.
Yeah. So something else that changed tonight is the actual number of students in the buildings. And going down to 1,000 students, but still with the thought that we would have a K-12 CSLA program is throwing up a little red flag for me. Again, with our efficient, effective operations long-term, looking at our recommendations for every other K-12 program, we'd be looking at a 1,300 to a 1,500. I mean, the Tyner Middle High is recommended to be a 1,500 student school, and that's just for 612. We know that small schools present staffing challenges. And I think our other K-12s we're looking at 1,300 students for Normal Park and for in the original plan for doing a Brainerd K-12.
Yeah, they were all 1,300.
So to go into it with 1,000 students, the Theater Center years ago did an expansion, and they didn't have quite enough money to put as many seats in as they need, which guaranteed that they would be at a budget shortfall every single year. They didn't have enough seats to sell enough tickets to pay for what they need to pay for. So we don't need to do that with our student numbers. I think a K-12 and CSLA is fantastic, But if we're trying to get all our K-12s to 1,300, and we can't fit 1,300 students on any one of these sites, is that what we should do? Because then we're putting yet another too small school online. I want to make a choice, but I want it to be a smart choice.
Yeah, and I'll go back to what I said earlier. I completely defer to you all on this conversation. At the end of the day, we got to make a decision. We're making recommendations, and you know we've been at this point before. We're at this point with Sears. We're at this point, you know, like we're at some point, you know, and I, you know, I don't know. I just. I'm at a loss on this conversation, and the board does not have to act on this project, but I would caution us, because we've got $1 billion in needs, and here we are with, you know, $20-something million in bond issue that we can't get spent. Like that goes counter, you know, to kind of what we know we need to do. And I would just say, if the decision is you don't like any of the CSLA, I'm saying don't like, but you know, you don't feel great about any of the CSLA recommendations, then let's move that money to some other projects. So let's do something. Again, we've got to act on something on this project.
I think we have to figure out what we want to do with the CSLA project as a collective body. I feel like that we can do that.
Well, one reason it's so much more expensive is because we're adding a high school. If we just had the K-8, we could, like they already have. I mean, if they don't want the K-8, then all of these sites should accommodate exactly what they have. How many students they have there now?
505.
500. So
Well, I think that whenever we vote.
500 seats. So if they don't, I mean, if we can't fit it on some of the property we have, maybe we just need to reevaluate whether they need a high school. Because it's going to cost us a lot more money in the staff with the high school too. So something you might want to consider. Just give them if they want a school like they have, then they can have a school like they have, and it'd be a whole lot less, because it's going to cost us more money in the long run to staff a whole new high school.
I think that, you know, when we voted 3 years ago on our small list that we would go ask the commission for money for it, and I want the public to remember that we went through a very daunting process. I mean, it is just as daunting as what this discussion is right now. You know, we also committed to the county commission whenever we approved that list that if they gave us the funding for those projects, that's what we would spend the money on. And so, you know, we're up against a lot in this decision-making process. We're trying to be efficient and effective. We're trying to meet equity needs. We're trying to do the right thing. And we're also trying to make our funding body happen. And these are all three like very hard, tall orders. And, you know, I will just say though that right now, if we weren't having this discussion around spending $30 million, there'd be a problem here. So, you know, I just want to at least put it out there, because I just looked at my watch and I'm like, it's 8:15, but you know what? This is a good discussion, and I'm really grateful that we're having it. So I'd still like to know the answer to my question.
Yeah, I'm quite, yeah.
Will you repeat it?
Well, just what do the CSLA parents desire?
So I did have a Zoom last night with them. I have been completely and really transparent with them. That's one thing that when I got on the board, wasn't happening. They were getting blindsided with projects, and that's one thing I vowed to never happen. And my schedule didn't allow me to do it today or tomorrow, so I just went ahead and did it. And so that's that part. I think what I've heard here tonight, there's a big elephant in the room. It has been since 1999 that they have been top priority for this district. It is 2020, and they have not had a new school. We're talking about moving Lakeside off their property. Valid concerns. We're also talking about moving CSLA from their property, which they love. And that's not a concern I've heard tonight. And that's a big concern for them.
So you're saying they want to stay there?
Well, I've heard from all of them. I think that's what they, I think what they've advocated for years and years through this process. I'm like Caritza, I'm very torn in this, because it's keeping them, one, in District 8, keeping them on their 35 acres, but it's also giving this award-winning school a award-winning facility. And that's something this board has not done. and can be done as soon as Thursday if the board wants to. I think what you looked at, what's happened at Howard Connect and what we've done with that could be a model for this, and then get them a brand new facility with a middle high school. We're expanding magnet seats, which has been a priority of this board, by 500. And so I think we really have to look at the bigger picture and not just the Lakeside community, which is impacted, but the CSLA community as well. They're a very vocal, very proud community. And, you know, part of mine, and I don't know if I've ever really lost sleep over anything on the board so far in my 2 years, but I've lost a lot of sleep over this just because I don't know what to do. But the thought that we've had $27 million sit there for 3 years and we have not done anything, it's very frustrating. For me, when I walk into that school, and I wish I would have brought my pictures. I go in there and every single time I take pictures because it is abysmal. I mean, you have bathrooms that have walls that are crooked that was fixed. Thank you, Justin. Lockers are protruding out this far from the wall because of foundation. I've probably been, half the times I've been in there, the library floods. So if we're talking about what we need to do, it's none of this board's fault where we are as a system in our facilities, but it's the problem that we have to overcome. I think, Kritzel, you said something. Real leadership is tough, and that's what this conversation has been. And so, you know, I struggle with this, but the thought of us having a realistic opportunity to get CSLA in a building that they deserve, that program deserves, is hard for me to pass up. I think, like you, Tiffany, I was a huge advocate for the Sears. I think that was just an extraordinary project. But even if it's still on the table, we still have $6 million that we have to come up with. Same with the CSLA property. That is my gold A+. That's the plan that I dream of. But you're looking at $9–10 million. The reality, and I'm a very realistic person, is that money's not there. And I don't think in this time, in a global pandemic, when we're seeing budget shortfalls, I mean, we just cut our budget, what, $2 million? We went from adding growth money like crazy to cutting our budget. And I don't think any of us can go to the taxpayers and ask for $10 million at this point in time when people are standing in lines at food banks or, you know, applying for assistance to do that. And so I think we tasked this administration to come up with a plan. And you know, I think we have a plan with Lakeside that is within that budget of that. And is it my number one plan? Is it the parents' number one plan? You know, they want their land. That's the one thing they've been.
Parents would rather stay on the current.
Yeah, but I think one thing that I've heard from that community is just like we've said tonight, like we are exhausted from this. Imagine how they feel. They've been kicked down the road time and time and time again. And they are, you know, I think that community, knowing them, they'll get behind whatever the board wants or does or acts on. You know, I don't think it's their number one, but I think they'll realize what they're getting and what they could get through this process. And that's just kind of where I stand on it. I think, speaking to where we go, Tyner is my number one priority after this. And I think maybe other people don't agree, but that meeting we had early July with that facilities that Saturday, that was a really good conversation. Yes. And we need to bring in more of those conversations. This is a $1 billion problem this district faces, and the board has to give it the time it deserves. And so I think if we have to sit on a Zoom or in person now for 3 hours and hash out those beliefs and those definitions, and then that's what this board needs to do to get this problem right. We're correcting so many wrongs that have not been done in the past. And so that's my commitment as facilities. And if I stay on as facilities, that's what I'll do. We'll do one of those. We've talked about doing some kind of facilities meeting on agenda sessions every month in some sort, but I think there's probably another Zoom call or a longer night, you know, maybe a Tuesday, Thursday night that we get together, not on a meeting night, that we dedicate that space to, and those conversations, because this you know, all these decisions, whether in phase 0 to phase 4, affects 44,000 students and a lot of families along with that. And so that's the airtime we need to give it. But I will just say, kind of in closing, that I'm exhausted from this. This has probably been my number one project since I've been on the board for these 2 years. I got parents texting me, blowing me up right now. I do Zoom calls with them. They call me. I love that school. I grew up in that community. I didn't go to CSLA, but I grew up there. And Caritza, if the board goes to Lakeside, or if it goes to Joe Smith, or whatever we do with that school is, well, open arms into that school. Crystal Scarborough is amazing. And so I just implore the board to look at it from all sides, and that we really stop just kicking this can down the road. I mean, I heard from a mom last night that was told my kid would have a 9th grade class to go into in 2020. It was 2021, and now it's probably 2022. And I mean, those are long-term plans those families are having to make, and what do they do? And they're counting on those seats. And so I'll leave it there with that. That I thank Dr. Johnson and Dr. Robertson for doing what we asked and coming with these 3 proposals. And I think it's the pleasure of the board. I firmly support the CSLA property, but I don't think it's realistic and price-wise, and so I think that leaves the Lakeside project, and that's what I would be in favor for as well.
One very brief statement. Mr. McClendon referred to the $1 billion need, and I call that $1 billion need an elephant. And how do you eat an elephant? You eat an elephant one bite at a time. CSLA is the priority bite. This is an option to meet that priority.
Absolutely. I want to add one small piece that I don't think has been mentioned. So, CSAS holds about 50 of their 912 seats every year for CSLA students. And so if you do get a 912 with CSLA, you open up, not only do you open up 100 seats per grade band probably, which is another 400 seats for 912, but you open up another 200 on CSAS. So in essence, you open up 600 9 to 12 choice seats at the high school grade band. So just a note there.
It opens up elementary seats as well.
Yeah.
We have anything else?
I'll say something real quick. Just listen to everybody, and guys, they're all tough conversations. We know this. One of the things that drew me to this 4 years ago was just there's tough decisions that have to be made, and people got to stick their nose in and make them. I mean, that's the bottom line. And you all know this because I'm preaching to the choir, but half the folks aren't going to like them, and half the folks will. There are very few times when a majority of the folks are going to wholeheartedly just applaud you for the decisions that you make when you're sitting in the seat. And this is a tough decision. We sat here as a board my first year and prioritized the schools that we wanted to address, and they were Harrison Elementary School. We had to have an East Hamilton Middle School, and we said we need to do something for CSLA. And when I sit here and think about all the pros and cons and all of the weight that we carry, there are 3 things that stick out to me, and it is, 1, this subtracts from our deferred maintenance. Mm-hmm. 2, there are going to be 4 school populations that will go to school if this project goes through. If this were to go through at Lakeside, 4 school populations will now be going to school in brand new schools. And we move forward in our facilities plan. Mm-hmm. And we get off of 0. And we begin to determine, and I've said this to everybody that's asked me about that plan. I'm thankful we have that plan. But again, it's for us as those folks that came and gave us some sterile numbers. Mm-hmm. They don't live here. They don't have to leave. They don't have to answer to anything when they're gone, and we do. And then we begin to, as board members, with the input of our community, prioritize what we're going to address in phase 1. As we move through that we all have insight to. And again, the reason I got off of the Sears site was we just don't have the money for it. I mean, I was never against any of that. I want CSLA to have a school. I want us to be able to move through and address some of these other communities and other schools. And listen, again, third generation Tyner grad, I want to see Soddy Daisy Middle School get something. I mean, I really do. I've been in that building. It needs to be addressed. So we just don't have the money to do what many of us would want to do, and we have an option and that we have money for at a time when really nobody has money. And I just think it behooves us to make use of our resources and show ourselves, as I said many times, to be good stewards of what we have. And I'm never in a hurry to vote. I know Dr. Johnson hears me say this a lot, and I've said to some of you all. I mean, I like to have time to chew on stuff, and I don't necessarily have to vote Thursday, but I understand the timelines around work that needs to be done and how it needs to be done. So, I mean, I'm open to whatever, if it's Thursday or if it's a special called or if it's something I don't know, whatever. But I just think we got to move on this, and we need to take care of some stuff that is a long time coming. And anyway, that's all I have.
Anyone else? Well, I guess that does it. I guess, Chairman Wingate, do we need to can we add something for discussion on Thursday about voting? We can't do anything tonight, but on adding it to the agenda, I don't know exactly how that.
We can do it. We just need Sherry to make media announcement. She can do that in the morning.
Okay. Well, with that, I will adjourn us.